and welcome to tonight's Board of Selectmen meeting, Tuesday, April the 23rd, 2024. We are meeting this evening in the Harry Butters Selectmen Chambers at Norwood Town Hall. Before we begin our agenda for the evening, as is our tradition, we will have the Pledge of Allegiance in a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we do have this evening a number of business items, a couple of appointments between now and within the next hour. We'll start with warrant signature update. Item number 1, submitting notification of review and approve warrant report signed by the board's representative. What is the board's pleasure?
Should accept and file.
Second.
And Mr. Plasko made the motion, Mr. Lane seconded. I'm going to go through roll call vote. Ms. Grow?
Yes.
Mr. Lane?
Yes.
Mr. Plasko?
Yes.
Mr. Sad?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. We have a first appointment at 6:35, which is in 3 minutes. Shall we try to get through some of our new business while we have a couple of minutes?
Sure.
All right, going into new business. First item of new business, 3.1. One-day liquor permit, the Norwood Portuguese Club, submitting a request for a one-day liquor permit for a dinner party at the Norwood Portuguese Club, 1090 Washington Street on April the 27th, 2024, from 6 p.m. until 12 a.m. with approximately 80 guests expected. Pleasure of the board.
Motion to approve.
A second.
Moved and seconded. Roll call vote. Ms. Grow?
Yes.
Mr. Lane?
Yes.
Mr. Plasko?
Yes.
Mr. Sad?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. 5-0. We'll do one more. One-day liquor permit for the Hometown Arcade. Submitting a request for a one-day liquor permit for a JCC Teachers Night Out at Hometown Arcade, 61 Endicott Street on Thursday, May 9th, 2024, from 6 p.m. until 9 p.m. with approximately 40 to 50 guests expected.
Make a motion to approve.
Motion made and seconded. I'll go to roll call vote once more. Ms. Grow?
Yes.
Mr. Lane?
Yes.
Mr. Plasko?
Yes.
Mr. Sad?
Yes.
And chair votes yes. So with that, we'll come back, we'll start again at item 3.3, but with that, I believe we can start just a minute earlier. So with our first appointment of the evening, we have several people that are here who have an interest in serving on the Council of Aging. There is a vacancy on the Council of Aging, and several folks have submitted an interest in serving on the council. And what we'd like to do at this point is have a brief meeting with the individuals who have an interest and who are here today, and maybe the board can just get to meet them and talk to them a little bit about their interests. So with that, the first person that I have in my packet here that we like to invite in for a conversation is Donna Triano, if Donna is here. Perfect. Hi. Have a seat right there. There you go. Welcome. Good evening. How are you?
Good evening, everyone.
Good. So what we like to do is, a lot of times when we have a vacancy in some of our boards and commissions, we do an outreach to the folks who like to have an interest, and oftentimes we'll bring them in here and allow the folks to speak to their interest, and so that's what we're going to do. I think we're just going to spend a couple minutes with you, just talking to you about your interest, and the board may have some inquiry or some questions for you, and that will be it. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your interest in the Council of Aging?
Okay, I'm a retired teacher, public school teacher, 27 years. I come from Cherry Hill, New Jersey, which is more or less a suburb of Philadelphia. My interests are history. I won't say that I'm necessarily political, so my reason for volunteering for this position was, to share in the things that would be the issues or certain ideas and whatnot for the seniors in our community. I want to be a part of that.
Great, thank you. Any questions from the board? Mr. Plasko?
I wonder if you could elaborate on what you know or believe is the main function, job, if you will, of the council on aging?
I would think that it would be to make suggestions, hear from the residents, attend different functions, perhaps, be an outreach to the community at certain functions such as the farmers market, the various parades, ceremonies, to attend the meetings. And, maybe if I were, if there were an opportunity, I would like to maybe offer, suggestions, something that would benefit the residents, something that would bring the people more together, or continue, actually to continue, because I find that there's a lot of.
Have you attended any council meetings for any reason?
No, I haven't.
Okay.
Any other questions from the board? Ms. Delane?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So you said you were a teacher. What grade did you teach?
Well, I taught all grades, but for 25 of those years, I was in middle school.
Great.
But I've also taught for 2 years, I taught, actually it amounted to 5 years as an adjunct instructor on the college level.
Oh, excellent. What kind of things were you teaching at the college level?
Writing,
Writing. That's great.
composition.
Do we have any writing programs at the senior center now?
This, I
Just
do not
thinking.
know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Also, I taught ESL. I'm certified ESL, also English, literature, language arts. I
Great.
taught all of them, and also history. So, and I'm well aware of, and I was thinking of approaching the school board because I'd like to offer my assistance in any way on, I know that the library offers ESL classes,
Mm-hmm.
and I'd like to, as far as the community is concerned, I'd like to become involved with that too,
That's great.
especially as, we can also add the seniors that are coming new to the area
Mm-hmm.
as well. I mean, they're taken care of in the schools and on that level, but I'd like to help out the seniors too.
Excellent. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Sad, I'm sorry, yes.
Very impressive. I was just gonna suggest that maybe contact some of the principals at the local level or at a different junior high or senior high level for extra assistance, because they're always looking for help.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right up that alley. You sound like you're really an expert on that area.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something we could look into also. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
coming.
So my question would be, or just curiosity, are there any specific events or activities at the senior center that you were particularly interested in or have attended in the past?
I like the dances, there's so many activities. I'd like to see more trips being offered through, that type of thing.
Mhm.
There are other towns and their senior centers that are offering trips, and maybe we could combine, or whatnot,
Mhm.
that type of thing.
Great, thank you. If there are no other questions from the board,
Just
oh,
one-
Amanda, Mrs. Grow, I'm sorry.
Oh,
Okay. Hello, sorry that I'm
Hello.
joining remotely here. My question was, what are you most looking forward to if you're able to serve? What's some of the first things that come to mind that you're excited about?
Getting to meet and know the other people on the board and to find out the policies and procedures as has been set up to, get acclimated in that.
Great, thank you. That was my only question.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Grow. Well, thank you so much for coming
Thank
in.
you.
So this evening, we're meeting with several people,
Mhm.
and it'll probably not be at tonight's meeting, but probably at one of our upcoming meetings, we'll make a decision on the vacancy. But thank you very much for coming in.
Thank
and
you.
expressing
Thank
interest.
you.
Thank you, it was nice meeting you.
Same here. Enjoy your evening. I saw the agenda is rather lengthy.
We'll get through it.
This part's nice.
Yes. So I'd like to invite in the second candidate who we're meeting with this evening, Kayleen Bichette, I'm sorry. Kayleen? Hello. Good evening. How are you? Right? Yeah, there you go. Make yourself at home.
Oh, well,
Well, thank you for coming in. So this evening, we're meeting with several folks who have indicated an interest in serving on the Council of Aging. So what we'd like to do is just hear a little bit about yourself and your interest in the position at the Council of Aging. And then the members of the board may have a question or two, follow up, and then we'll let you go, okay?
okay.
So why don't you start off with your interest in the position? Tell us
Okay.
about it.
My name's Kayleen Bechet. I've lived in Norwood pretty much all my life since I was 5. I retired 2 years ago, and I decided to go to the senior center just to do things and be active, and I participated in several of their programs, their exercise programs and the lunch program. And then about probably 6 months or so, I started volunteering at the front desk, and I do data entry or anything that they need done. I help with different events and things like that. So I actually want to see that everybody there is having the same experience I'm having. It's a great place. There's inclusion. The leadership is fabulous. I love everybody there. I'm trying to think what else. I've been part of the lunch program, which I think the kids coming from the schools in there, eating lunch sometimes with the older people, just that inclusion, I like that. I like that the trips are versatile. There's lots of different things that people do. I like to see that continue. Trying to think what else I do there. The exercise is great. There's all different programs for that, and the speakers that they have, wonderful. But I can't say enough about the staff. The staff is great. So I just want to be part of that and make sure it continues for everybody that's there.
Thank you very much. So at this point, we'll open it up for any questions from the board. Mr. Sad.
It sounds like you're gonna be a future leader in that group, so keep it up. Step
It's
forward.
fun. Thank you. I
It's a lot of
enjoy
fun.
it.
Yep,
Yeah.
good.
I've met a lot of great people, the members, the staff, and, the kids even in the kitchen. It's great.
Follow-up question, who's the president of the Council of Aging now?
Oh,
Does anybody know? President of
The
the Council of
president?
Aging?
Chairman,
Yeah,
I think that one is
I don't know.
okay, forget that question.
Oh, I don't know.
I'm good, Mr. Chairman.
I think it's Greg Davis.
But he's for the Friends. Is that the same? Isn't he in charge of the Friends of the COA? Is that the same?
Is it
No,
Alan
He's,
Howard?
sorry, no, you're right,
Oh.
he's the head of the Friends.
Yeah, so I don't know. I thought it was Alan, but I don't know.
Alan Howard?
I think Alan might be chair.
Okay, good, he can do you some work, thank you. All right,
Mr. Plasko.
thank you. You spoke a lot about, obviously you're up there, so you have a lot of familiarity with the center.
Yes.
What do you believe, if anything, is the role of the members of the council for serving the elders that aren't at the center?
I've only been there for a couple of years, but I'm assuming that it's to make sure that when there's a change, that it's to benefit the elders and that things go in the right direction, as opposed to if there's any kind of conflict, that it's resolved quickly. Those kind of things is what I'm assuming that it is. I actually am new to this, and it was one of those things that once Betty's position became available, I really didn't know that much about it. And I guess the only way to know about it is to be involved.
Thank you.
But
Mr. Lane?
I think I'm all set. Just thank you for your interest and thank you for the volunteering that you're doing now. And it's great that we have great volunteers there.
it's really rewarding in a lot of ways.
Definitely.
I'm making a lot of friends.
Good. Ms. Grow?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hello, my question was, what's something that you're really looking forward to right away if you're able to serve, particularly if there's something you've noticed since you've already been at the center and been volunteering? Is there any improvement that sort of jumps to the front of your mind that you're excited about?
I think that everything runs really well. The volunteer program, it's nice if they have training for everybody and everybody's on the same page, but a lot of the people have been there for quite a while and they do a great job. I can't think of anything really that's bad because everything's great. I've had a great experience. So.
Great. No further questions from me, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Grove. So, how often are you at the front desk as in the reception area?
So when anybody's sick, usually they call me. I don't have an actual schedule. The only thing, so people are out frequently, believe it or not, and I'll just do whatever day they ask for. And somebody's going out that does a deposit, so I've learned how to do that, so I'm gonna help with that. And I do data entry when they need it, when they need extra people to handle the lunches. Sometimes someone will have to leave early, and that's a cumbersome thing. You need a couple people to do that, so I'm there almost every day.
Great.
So I don't volunteer every day, but if they need me, I'll stay, because I go up for the exercise in the morning, or a function in the afternoon. If they need help with that, I'll do stuff like that.
Very well. Well, thank you for your volunteerism, and I don't have any further questions. I think at this point, we're gonna let you go.
Okay.
And we're not gonna be making a decision tonight. I think we will, we'll address that a little later. But, certainly in the future meeting, we'll have a formal vote to select someone to fill the vacancy very soon. But I
Okay.
appreciate your application and your coming in here and for your volunteerism. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate you
Thank
meeting
you.
with me, and I think
Thank
it's
you.
great that you did that for everybody, gave them a chance.
Thank you.
Take care. Have a
Yeah.
good night.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Good night. At this point, the next person I think we can is Nancy. Nancy Mazzulio? Okay, thank you. Yeah. Well, thank you and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Sure. So, this is an opportunity for applicants who have an interest in the Council of Aging to come in and express their interests and tell us a little bit about their experiences with the Senior Center and the Council of Aging. The floor will be yours in a moment, and then we'll entertain some questions from the board, and then we'll move on. So,
Okay.
so welcome. Tell us a
Thank
little
you.
bit about yourself and your interest in the position.
Well, I've been a 36-year resident of Norwood. I've been active with the council, with the Senior Center for many years. I am a registered nurse. I retired from South Shore Hospital. And during that time, I'm actually a cardiac clinical nurse specialist. And I spent many, many hours working in the community with our marketing department, doing a lot of education to all the communities in the South Shore, cardiac-wise. I have also worked after 9/11, the Medical Reserve Corps here in Norwood. I became a member of that. And also delivering Meals on Wheels, volunteer as a Meals on Wheels for the program here in Norwood until COVID, and then that program ended. I am, as a clinical nurse specialist, my specialty is education. And I know that that's part of the Council on Aging is, it's very important for education in the community. Most of the last 25 years of my nursing experience has been educating seniors. So I think I have a really good handle on that. Just a sidebar, I am a military veteran and have served in the Army, Vietnam veteran, and worked constantly doing volunteer work. So I'm kind of very interested in a position on the board.
Very nice, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. At this point, any questions from the board? Mr. Satt?
No, thank you for coming and volunteering and stepping forward, and love the idea of all these people. It's kind of a great idea for the Council of Aging, which the other groups could have as many people interested up there at the
I
senior
wish they
center.
could.
That's it, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Mr. Satt.
Wonderful background,
Oh, thank you.
but I'd like to get specific to the council.
Yes.
What do you know or believe you know about the role of the council?
Actually, just that the mission statement has to do with education on the seniors in the community. I participate in a lot of programs with Carrie and at the senior center since I've retired. I have actually retired a number of years ago, but worked part-time at Newbridge, also in home care. That's my specialty, as well as cardiac.
Thank you.
All right. Mr. Lane?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your service as well. My father served in Vietnam
Oh.
as well, and I was born at South Shore Hospital.
Oh.
So I don't have any specific questions, just you had talked about some of the outreach that you had done while working
Yes.
for the hospital. I think, outreach is a big part of the Council on Aging. There's a lot of opportunity there, even though, we just assume that everybody in town knows about what goes on at the senior center. There are a lot of people that maybe don't, and so I think any time that someone has experience in outreach and can lend a hand, that's great. So I think there's opportunity for that for sure.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's nice meeting you. Thank you for being here.
Okay, great. Thank you, gentlemen.
We have one.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, oh,
I meant
I'm
personal.
sorry.
Oh,
Thank
sorry.
you.
Okay.
We
No
have,
rush.
Ms. Groh
I'm not in a hurry.
is remote today on the TV, so
Oh,
she,
oh.
yeah, it's a little different. You have to turn a little bit the other way
Okay.
now.
Hi.
Sorry. Hello,
Hi.
thank you for coming in, and thank you very much for your service. My question was, I wanted to know if there's any particular things that you're very excited about, right when you get started, if you get to serve, what are some things at the front of your mind that you're very eager to work on, or improvements that you have in mind?
Absolutely. Cardiac, that's my specialty, is cardiac. I started a congestive heart failure clinic at South Shore Hospital, as well as 2 support groups for congestive heart failure. And very interesting, I always had an agenda for my support group. It was a 5-week course, and we focused on many things, diet, exercise. But my agenda always changed based on the needs of the community and the members of the support group. And the number one interest was always medications. So I have a particular interest in medications, specifically cardiac medications. As we all know, heart disease is the #1 killer of both men and women in this country. And the lack of knowledge for cardiac medications, their interactions, how they impact daily lives, I think that's very important, and a huge knowledge deficit with our seniors in the community.
Great. That was my only question. Thank you so much for sharing that. And thank you for coming in tonight.
Okay, my pleasure.
Nancy, I don't have any questions. You've been very thorough in what your background. I too appreciate your service, particularly in Vietnam. Very impressive. What we're going to do is we're not making a decision this evening. We're hearing from candidates, and probably our next meeting or some future meeting, we'll make a final decision in terms of how best to appoint someone to the vacancy. But for this evening, thank you very much for coming in. It's been
Okay.
a pleasure meeting with you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Yep.
All right, at this point, we'll invite Trish Monahan in. Hi, Trish. Good evening.
Everybody, thank you. Hello.
So Trish, thank you for coming in.
Thanks for
Welcome.
having me.
So You've probably been hearing all the information from your approach out there in the hallway. We're meeting with the candidates who have expressed an interest in the vacancy on the Council of Aging. We're spending just a few minutes allowing the candidate to tell us a little bit about themselves and their interests in the position on Council of Aging, their experience with the Senior Center. Then I'll open up for any questions from the board, and then we'll move on from there.
Okay.
So the floor is yours.
Thank you. So I worked at the senior center for 5.5 years, went to the board meetings every month, helped them redo their bylaws, helped work with one of the former, was she the chair of the board, to help walk her through how the meeting runs and who can make motions, who can't, Robert's rules. Redo the bylaws that state, like it says in there, for instance, that you can't, you have to be 60 or older to come in. It's in there whose jobs are which under the board, how many terms they serve, how many years their term is, how they proceed when somebody's resigning, or if there's any opening for any kind of reason. So that's, I'm familiar with how the board works. I'm familiar with how the senior center runs, which is very well. The senior center is very, very well run. So
Thank you.
I'd like to just keep being part of it, even though I don't work there anymore.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks.
So at this point, I'm going to ask the board members to talk to you a little more about your interests and
Sure.
any questions they have you might be able to address. That'd be
Sure.
great. Mr. Sad.
I just reading over the resume, and I gotta tell you, it's a long one. A lot of volunteer work for the town and the Council of Aging, and it's very impressive.
Thank you.
And seems like you know what you're doing inside and out up there, and I just wanna thank you for coming forward and putting your time in. And is that a paid position? I don't even know.
Which one?
The Council of Aging, because everybody wants to be on this board.
No, it's not.
Oh,
it's
okay. All right, thank you. That's it, Mr.
The
Chairman.
good news is we're giving them a 100% pay raise. next
Yeah.
year.
Yeah, every year they double their raise.
Wow, all right.
Same as we get.
Yeah, exactly.
Mr. Plasko.
Well, I think Ms. Monahan's problem is overexposure. We know her. She has a lot of information, a lot of background, a lot of time served. But obviously you know what's going on up at the council, having been there. But I'm going to ask you anyhow the same question I've asked everybody else. What do you believe is the central responsibilities of the council itself?
I think to oversee the bylaws, and most of all to support Carrie if there's anything that she needs. Work as a team to get anything done that the council decides they need to get done. Help with programs if they need to. Advocacy. I would love to get involved in the advocacy piece of it. I think that's one piece that's missing. And just whatever they need, really. Carrie's very self-sufficient, so she doesn't have to come to the board often, but when she does, they need to be there to help her.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Lane.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's good to see you.
You too, thank you.
Thank you for being here. I was just gonna ask, but I think you answered with your last question, if there was anything in your experience, in having worked there, that maybe we can improve on. You had mentioned advocacy, so, you
Yeah.
know, don't need you to repeat yourself or anything like that, but, yeah, just appreciate all the work that you've put in there, and,
Thank you.
so, yeah, thank you for your interest.
Thank you.
Ms. Grow.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hello, joining remotely. Thanks so much for coming in tonight.
Sure.
My question was, you mentioned the advocacy piece. I'm actually really curious to hear, can you elaborate on advocacy a little more, like the types of advocacy both that you think we lack or that you feel particularly well positioned to be effective at?
Well, I know that because I do health insurance counseling, I know that there are a number of issues regarding, right now the biggest issue is the cost of medications. So if we could get the senior center, or the council on aging rather, involved in sending a letter in support of this bill that will help bring the cost of the medications down. There's a bill pending now that I just heard about today, so I'm not all that familiar with the wording, with the full thing, but there's a grant that's come up for billions of dollars, I believe it is, to take people from nursing homes back to their homes and provide support there. So that would help seniors greatly, because some people just end up in a nursing home because there's nobody to help them. And if they can get back to their homes and get the care that they need, then that's so much the better. The quality of life improves greatly for those people. So I would like to get involved in either one of those. I do have a soft spot for health insurance. so I probably shouldn't get going on that and get on my soapbox, but that would probably be my biggest thing.
That makes sense. That's excellent. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for going through that.
Sure.
That was my only question. I can pass it back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms.
Thanks.
Grow. Ms. Monahan, I don't have any questions. Your information is very thorough. I guess the only question I would have, are there any particular events or activities that you're particularly passionate about at the senior center from a personal perspective?
You know what, I have to admit, it's a stupid thing, but I love being on the bus.
Ah,
I love being out
Okay.
on the bus.
wonderful.
Yeah, but all the programs are great. Some of them draw their own crowd, and some of them draw a different crowd, some of them draw all the crowds. But really, anything that they do up there is good.
Very good.
Yeah, it's all really, really good. It's a great, great place.
Well, thank you for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
We are not making a decision tonight, as we'll meet again, probably in the first meeting in May, and then we'll have opportunity to deliberate and fill the vacancy at that time.
Great.
But thank you for coming in this
Thank you.
evening. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thanks.
Take care.
So the next item of business is 7 p.m. We're just running a little bit late. It's recognition to the Old Parish Cemetery volunteers. If their representatives are here, we can invite them in. Good evening. Yes, we have a table right, yeah. Some of you can sit at the table. If this is room, you can sit in the back bench, if you will.
All right,
Thank you for coming in.
thank you for having us.
Yeah. Oh, boy, we're running out of chairs. Somebody sit with
We
Patty.
just brought a few of ours.
John should sit here.
John can sit here.
We're gonna pack the house tonight.
There you go, there you go.
You'll have to sit.
Well, welcome. Before we get to specifics of our agenda item, does someone want to introduce the members of the volunteers?
Sure,
All
okay.
right.
So, I'm Patty Fanning, John Grove, Sue Bartlett, Roger Cherry, Nick Punjatori, Barbara Riley, Leslie Powers, Kate Allendorf, Tom Lambert.
Welcome. So, I'm
It's a
going to...
mixture of people here. Some of us
Yeah.
are on the board, some of us do cleaning, some is an engineer who organizes all kinds of things, and so.
Great. Well, we're here to recognize you for an award that you recently were awarded for a national recognition. I thought maybe perhaps as an opportunity for you to speak to the organization that is recognizing you, and maybe tell us a little more about what the Old Parish Preservation Volunteers do for Norwood on a regular basis.
Well, we organized in like 2018 to restore and preserve the Old Parish Cemetery. And immediately we had some volunteers who wanted to help out. So we go 5 Saturdays in the spring, 5 Saturdays in the fall, and we clean the stones. We reset the stones so that they're standing up straight. We repair the stones that are broken. We've also expanded our mission so that we do tours. On July 4th, we organize a Reading Frederick Douglass event that has become part of the July 4th celebration in Norwood. A couple of years ago, for the celebration of the 150th, we put on the play Our Town by Thornton Wilder in the cemetery, which was quite an unusual thing to do, and it was a great success. So we're, constantly sort of trying to have people raise the awareness of the cemetery in the town, and the history that's there, and the culture that's there. And we also enjoy ourselves. We have a good time.
Good. Well, I have the award information here, then I'll ask another question for you. Your organization has been awarded by the Board of Trustees of the Association of Gravestone Studies, AGS. They voted unanimously to present you with the prestigious Fred and Rosalie Oakley Award for their work within the community. So our congratulations to you. Your work within the community is outstanding. There's probably an opportunity this evening to if you want to do a pitch for people to, there's a person on the far right who is always pitching to me personally the activities
One of our best pitches.
at the old parish. But why don't you tell folks about if they were willing volunteers out in the community, how would they go about getting in touch with you folks to help you in your work?
You want to take it?
Sure. As Patty said, we start off, our main work is what we call work days. And we do 5 in spring, 5 in the fall. The first one for 2024 is this coming Saturday. To be a part of our group, you just show up. There's no dues, there's no memberships. You show up, we teach you how to clean stones, how to reset stones. We have the tools. We ask you to bring your own gloves and dress accordingly. But that's all it takes. Just come and give us a couple of hours. We start at 8:30. Dunkin' Donuts is coffee there and Munchkins. We end at 10:30 and we come back next Saturday.
Nice.
So it's 2 hours out of a Saturday and anybody's welcome, age 16 and over.
Great, great, great. I'll open it up for the board members to question or speak. Mr. Sad.
I can't imagine, this is what makes Norwood great. These people, the work they do, and everybody that comes tonight, the senior council of aging, everybody just wants to pitch in and help. And it's just remarkable, and I want to thank each and every one of you for your help and support of this issue and this project. And that's what makes Norwood great, the Commonwealth, crown jewel of the Commonwealth. And I've known John for a long time. Good job for everybody.
Not that
Thank
long.
you.
Let's, I might be the oldest one in the room, but it's okay.
Mr. Blasko.
Well, besides ditto, ditto, ditto,
Yep.
I probably should be up there more often than I have been. I think the last time I was up there was Howard Town, and that was a wonderful experience. And I hadn't really looked around the cemetery itself that much before that, or since. But I don't know, within the last 10 days, I had reason to be up there and walking around. And the job that people have done is amazing. You can see where the work's been done. And it's, I mean, some of those stones look like they're brand new for crying out loud.
They do.
And yet we know the age of them. And it's just wonderful to, that people come forward and do this and volunteer. And as Mr. Sad said, these are the things that we have other people in town too that don't get recognized enough because it makes us a wonderful community. And I just want to thank you for all your efforts.
Thank you.
Mr. Lane.
Great, thank you. Like my colleagues, thank you so much for all the work that you do. I've been fortunate enough to participate in some of the last July 4th readings, and it's a great event, and it's really powerful. And I'm so glad that we do that as a town, and that you've organized that. So just keep on doing great work. Thank you for being here. This is really nice when we get to have people come in and for the community, if they haven't maybe heard or seen you, to see on TV. So this is great. And if we can be helpful at all with anything that comes up, just let us know, and we'll put out the announcement or however we can be helpful.
Thank you.
Great, thanks.
Ms. Grow.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, everyone, for coming in. We're so proud of everybody's hard work. I just so deserving of this award, this national recognition. I love going to the Old Parish Street. As Mr. Bosco mentioned, you can really see the work. I look forward to the 4th of July reading every year. Just even over that time, just seeing these improvements, year after year. It's such a great space. It's such an important part of the community. And you do such a good job of helping connect current residents with the history of past residents. And it's just such a great effort, and just really appreciate everyone's hard work. It really, really makes a difference in the community. So thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm a lifelong resident. Well, I was born and raised in Norwood, and I have to say that it wasn't until most recently that I've really grown to appreciate the parish. And I thank you, Dr. Fanning, for doing that. I did participate in the Frederick Douglass reading in the July 4th a couple of years ago, and my wife and I decided to spend time after the speech to walk the cemetery. And you were nice enough to bring us to a couple of grave sites, including Aaron Gott, who you were kind enough to not only bring us to his grave site, but give us an interesting history that we have here with Aaron. And I wouldn't have been able to do that without your knowledge and your history and your graciousness and telling us a little bit Erringale, which I know Mr. Lambert has heard all about as well, since I believe your wife is a descendant.
Many generations back.
Very good. Well, there's something,
Yeah.
there's a great connection
I'm
there.
married to the oldest townie roots, I think.
There you go. I think you can put a stake in that. You have that, I'm sure. Well, again, thank you very much, and congratulations on your award. It really is a great award, and it's well-deserved.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Con.
Thank you.
Tom, you still leading that horse? You still leading that horse around?
Yeah. It's not a cow.
Oh, cow, whatever it was.
Everybody thought it was a cow, but it was a horse.
All right, well, let us return to the agenda at this point, and under new business, I believe we are at item 3.3, a one-day liquor permit for Hometown Arcade, submitting a request for a one-day liquor permit for a Norwood Toastmasters event at Hometown Arcade, 61 Endicott Street, on Wednesday, June 5th, 2024, from 5 p.m. until 9 p.m., with approximately 40 to 50 guests expected. The pleasure of the board.
Move approval?
Moved by Mr. Plasko, seconded by Mr. Lane. We'll do the roll call vote. Ms. Grow?
Yes.
Mr. Lane?
Yes.
Mr. Plasko?
Yes.
Mr. Sad?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes as well, 5-0. Item 3.4, this is a car wash request. Friends of Norwood Lacrosse submitting a request to hold a car wash at the municipal lot on Saturday, June 1st, 2024, from 8 a.m. until 2 p.m. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
And Mr. Plasko was seconded. I'll do the roll call. Ms. Grow?
Yes.
Mr. Lane?
Yes.
Mr. Plasko?
Yes.
Mr. Sad?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Item 3.5, car wash. Norwood High School Swim and Dive, submitting a request to hold a car wash at the municipal lot on Saturday, June 22nd, 2024, from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. Do I have a motion?
Motion approved.
Mr. Lane has made a motion to approve, seconded by Mr. Sad. Ms. Grow?
Yes.
Mr. Lane?
Yes.
Mr. Plasko?
Yes.
And Mr. Sad?
Yes.
And chair votes yes as well, 5-0. Item 3.6, sign placement. Norwood Evening Garden Club, submitting a request to post a frame and yard sign from April the 27th through May the 12th to promote their plant sale at the following locations: Town Common, Hawes Park, Chapel Street, the Rotary at Norwood High School, Nickel Street, and Gall Square. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Plasko and seconded by Ms. Grow. Ms. Grow on the motion? Yea or nay? Yes. Mr. Lane?
Yes.
Mr.
Yes.
Plasko? Mr. Sad?
Yes.
It's 5-0. Chair votes with yes. Item 3.7, this is a banner placement and street closure request for the 4th of July Celebration Committee. 1, submitting request to place a banner on the poles at Washington Street between Vernon and Day Street from June 5th to July 5th, 2024, to advertise the 4th of July parade and festivities. 2nd, submitting request to close Washington Street from south of the middle school at Mylord Street to Town Hall on July the 4th, beginning at 4:30 p.m. for the Firecracker 5K road race and lasting until the parade ends around 7 p.m. Do I have a motion?
Not until they tell us who's the honored guest this week. Motion to approve both requests.
Okay, do I have a second? Mr. Sad seconded. On the motion, Ms. Grow?
Yes.
Mr. Lane?
Yes.
Mr. Plasko?
Yes.
Mr. Sad?
Yes.
Chair votes yes, 5-0. Okay, here's an interesting one. We have a bear hunt. This is from the Norwood Recreation Department submitting a request to host a bear hunt in Shattuck Park from Friday, April the 26th until Monday, May 6th. The program consists of 5 wooden bears being hidden throughout Shattuck Park and will be geared towards younger children. I guess that eliminates us from participating, but it sounds like fun. Do I have a motion for this request?
Motion approved.
Motion and seconded by Mr. Lane. On the motion, Ms. Grow?
Yes.
Mr. Lane?
Yes.
Mr. Plasko?
Yes.
Mr. Sad?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. The next item, 3.9, it's the report from the Traffic Safety Advisory Committee, recommendations. Submitting recommendations from the Traffic Study Committee, 2 of them. 1, proposing moving reserve spaces to the 2nd and 3rd spaces on Manhattan Street at the Common. 2nd, proposing a traffic study at the Big Y intersection. The board has in hand the report. Mr. Mizuko or Mr. Rosen, is there anything you want to add to these requests, or are they self-explanatory? Or?
No, Mr. Chairman, I think they speak for themselves. As we continue several years now after the pandemic, we're always tweaking the traffic around Central Street. This is the latest change that we would recommend. And then on the traffic study, it's been brought up by the board. If we're able to complete a study, we'll have to look where we can get the money from, see if it can be a reserve transfer, or if we have to wait until the start of the fiscal year. That'll just allow us to get ahead of the state, looking into it, possibly doing something about it if they so choose. Gives us a leg up when we've invested a little bit to start.
So the first request, are there questions from the board? Mr.
I have a
Plasko?
question on the second one, or you want to handle them separately?
No, you go right ahead, Mr. Plasko. Thank you.
First of all, the request, why would we call to the state, or to the state's attention our concerns and have them do this study and look at the results just by being put on the work from the locals rather than doing the study ourselves?
If I could be candid, it would likely just get buried at the bottom of a MassDOT work list, and a possible response of it looks okay, or they may not be interested in making any changes or any other proposals. If we're able to do a study, we can go to them and say, look, we've looked at this, this is what's needed, it's now in your hands to get it done. It's not a grant program, but it's similar to a grant program where if we're able to come to the table with a little bit more, we'll usually get a little bit more.
I'm concerned that the request also says that it requests the Board of Selectmen to dedicate funds between $5,000 and $10,000. My pocket doesn't have that much money in it. Where are we dedicating these funds from?
Well, I think it's probably just the way it was phrased, Mr. Chairman. We certainly wouldn't expect board members to personally do it. There's a couple of options. One, we can seek a reserve fund transfer if we want. If we'd like to see if the FinCom would want to do that, we can try to do this at the start of next fiscal year. This late in the fiscal year, this amount of money for study is a little bit too much for the budget to absorb. We could look at a future warrant article. I don't know if I really want to go to 10,000, a town meeting just for a $10,000 warrant article. We can also look at our Chapter 90 if a road project comes in under its expected cost. Sometimes there's some flexibility there. I think it's more to let the board know we can move forward with this. We'd like your support. At some point, there's going to be a bill due that we'll need to find the money for.
Well,
Yes, Mr. Plasko.
I think we have to resolve where that money would come from and which of those different options we would be pursuing to say we're dedicating any funds. I don't think any of them are necessarily great options, even though we're not talking about a money here. Maybe we could request a reserve fund transfer and see what the Finance Commission says.
And the funding that we're talking about is between 5,000 and 10,000? We're pretty certain it won't exceed that? Okay. Mr. Lane, I'm sorry. Go right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Rizzuto, for the lining of that intersection, I'm actually thinking of when you're coming the other way, when you're trying to make a left into the Big Y as opposed to going straight. Are we responsible for the striping and the demarcation of the left-hand turn?
I believe we are. I can check into that. Has it not been, it may just not have made the spring list of work yet?
Yeah, just because I mean, I don't like that intersection at all either, and I'm glad that we're looking at it, but I've noticed that the road, at a loss, sorry. The markings for the road are really faded, and I think that just doesn't help, for that intersection, which is already not great. So if that's something that we could look at, if we are responsible for it.
Absolutely.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Mr. Sad?
I was the one that brought that up because I know a few people have come to me and they had road rage incidents with people coming there. It's a tough corner, and it's worth the $5,000, $6,000 investment for the town. And I think Billy, my buddy Billy, would be happy that we're putting this forward. So I can make a motion to support it and go from there.
Mr. Sad has made a motion to, is in support of both, is there any, before we move on that motion, Mr. Sad, is there any questions about the first item, which is moving the reserve spaces on Manhattan Street near the Central Street turf area?
No, they know what they're doing.
Yeah. My question on that would be, is that's an outcome from, it seems, closing Central Street for a period of time? Would these recommendations for those spaces be all year long, not just for the period of time that Central Street is closed? I would take it.
No, they wouldn't be just for the period while it's closed.
Oh, it is, okay.
We mark those sort of special spots in the summer, if you will, for delivery and pickup because the street's closed. Once the street's open in the winter, it'll go back to normal. Unless we decide to close the street permanently.
Okay. Mr. Sad has made a motion. Any comment on the motion?
No.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Where are the funds coming from?
Wherever they find them. I don't know where they're gonna find them. They'll find them.
May I just make a suggestion that
Yeah.
perhaps we can, if, I'm chair now, maybe I shouldn't do this, but I'm wondering whether or not a member could offer an amendment to the motion that just asks the town manager to, we could support this traffic study at Big Y with the condition that a specific identification of a funding source is brought back to us before the study is entered into.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Ms. Grow.
you have described the amendment I was going to propose making.
And I think Mr. Plasko has moved for Mr. Sad's motion to be amended with that condition. Do I have a second?
Second.
Yeah.
Mr. Sad? I'm going to take Ms. Grow as a second since you're the original motion
Okay.
maker. Proposed traffic study at Big Y modified to Mr. Plasko's observation that a funding source should be identified before work begins. On the modified motion, Ms. Grow?
Yes.
Mr. Lane?
Yes.
Mr. Plasko?
Yes.
Mr. Sad?
Yes.
Very good, thank you. 3.10, these are appointments, annual appointments and reappointments for discussion and vote of the board. I'm not going to go through these one by one, but I will just name the vacancies so that we're all understanding what the slate of vacancies are. There are a variety of appointments for current members of various boards whose terms are coming to an end either April 30th of this year or May 1st. So the slate for reappointments and everyone has been notified of their opportunity to continue their service through a reappointment. On the Board of Appeal, Zoning Board of Appeal, Alfred P. Porro, Jr. Associate Member of the Board of Appeal, Paul W. Easy. Airport Commission, John J. Corcoran. Constables, Brian J. Flavin. Board of Registrars, Martha A. Pillow. Cable Commission, Richard M. Shea. And Council of Aging, yes, Mr. Plasko.
Are we going to hold the council?
We can hope, yeah, I'll speak to that, yes. There is a second one here, though, that,
Oh, okay.
yeah. So we have two reappointments. One, but we're just going to go with the one right now. There is a question. We're going to hold on one reappointment as we're not certain as the incumbent member is wanting to be reappointed. So the only Council of Aging, reappointment here would be Carolyn McLeay, Council of Aging. So that's our slate. What is the pleasure of the board? Mr. Plasko.
Make a motion to reappoint each of those individuals named by the chairman whose terms are expiring up for reappointment.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Lane. So with that, we'll go to the roll call vote for, on Mr. Plasko's motion. Ms. Grow?
Yes.
Mr. Lane?
Yes.
Mr. Plasko?
Yes.
Mr. Sad?
Yes.
And chair votes yes. Just a comment, so we will, there is a Council of Aging that we'll have to consider if the individual does determine that they do not want to be reappointed. That would end up with a second vacancy on the Council of Aging. I also want to make note, and with thanks, that on the Airport Commission, we are still meeting and recruiting people who have interest in serving on the Airport Commission. We were unable to bring forward folks at our last meeting, and I think at this point in time, given the timing, we want to extend our thanks to Commissioner Mark Ryan, who is current member who had recently resigned but has agreed to serve on the commission until 6/30/24, which will give us an opportunity to consider applicants for the commission in our May and our June meeting. So thank you, Mr. Ryan, for doing that. With that, all right. Item 3.11, cemetery deeds.
Approval?
Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Sad seconds. All in favor of Mr. Plasko's motion? Ms. Grow?
Yes.
Mr. Lane?
Yes.
Mr. Sad?
Yes.
Mr. Plasko?
Yes.
The chair votes yes. Okay, that brings us to item 3.2, special town meeting warrant and yellow sheet. I'll look to the observations of the prior chairs to my left and right. I think what I would suggest here, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that we review the special town meeting warrant item number 1 for our review and signature. Item 2, review the special town meeting yellow sheet for the purposes of taking positions on the warrant.
Yes, because of the timing, we usually have a little more time, but we're getting short. The only thing I personally would suggest is maybe we can almost do them together, because at least myself, I have a couple of questions on some of the articles, which would get us right to the yellow sheet,
Okay.
the reasons being given.
So with that, we'll review the warrant and the yellow sheet, and we'll ask, I guess I will ask for each of them a motion to sign the warrant and support and take a vote of support.
Will you bring the chiefs in with you?
Yes, we have
Yeah.
a couple of guests here.
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, Mike, if you could do that. Thank you.
So, Mr. Chair, we have multiple staff and some elected officials are here, volunteers. Do you want them all at the dais here, or, I mean, they're here more to answer questions than to present, so.
Chief, chiefs plural, I guess you'd say. You first. Yes, and then for the other ones, we'll, yeah. All right. Good evening.
Hello. Good evening.
Hi, Chief.
How are you?
This may be the final meeting we have with you, I'm not sure.
This may be your last opportunity to beat me up.
All right, right.
My hat, Mr. Sad.
And welcome, Deputy Chief.
Thank you.
/ Chief Patton to us. So we invited you in because article number 1 of the warrant has to do with internal transfers. I think the only one that we're listing to date, Mr. Mizuko, and Mr. Rosen, is the transfers for the police department. Basically, the transfer amount is to transfer $250,000 and $860 from one account to make up for the differences in expenses in 4 different accounts. So with that, if you could just give us a little background in terms of the your budget. You're not over your budget. You're within the budget. But if you can give us a little explanation as to the need for the transfers, that would be appreciated.
So I was going to lead with that this is a internal transfer within the police department budget. And what you've seen over the years, and including my predecessors, is transfers from the salary accounts into expenses, a special town meeting in the spring. So the expense part of our budget, as you know, is only about 4% of the total amount. The vast majority of the spending, 92% or so, is in salaries, which is salary and overtime. And there's a benefit given to police officers, like in virtually every police department in Massachusetts. It's a holiday pay, which is a sizable amount of pay. Several years ago, but long before I was here, the town, in negotiating with the police unions, granted the option to officers to take time off instead of pay. And I'm sure the people at the time thought that would be a benefit. Well, things have shifted, and the vast majority of our people take time off instead of pay. Now, oftentimes we use money from that unspent or vastly underspent line in overtime, because those shifts cost some overtime to fill. If only the patrolmen did that, that would be 700 shifts over the course of a year, just in holiday time off. So what happens is that we underspend that amount, and although we spend some of it on overtime, we transfer then some of it into expenses. And the numbers over the years have fluctuated from anywhere from, I think, $22,000 in just last year to up to $80,000 in Springtown meeting in 2018. But this year it's even, I don't want to say worse, but even more stark, in that we've just had a lot of vacancies that occurred towards the end of last calendar year, beginning of this calendar year, where now we're up to 6 vacancies. So not only are we not paying salaries to 6 employees, and mine's the most recent, so that hasn't kicked in yet, but the other 5 have. And these are officers who retired, or in a couple of cases left the department for other opportunities. And so you have that, not only the holiday pay issue that I just described, but you also have underspending in that we're not paying salaries to those employees. And then the other thing that we saw this year, which is just, again, I think a fluke, is the amount of time between when those vacancies were generated and when academies start. So we have 3 police academies starting within the course of the next 6 weeks, and there haven't been any up until now. So it's not like we had a vacancy that was created in December and we could put somebody in the academy in February. There weren't any academies in February, right? So we have this period of time where we're unable to put people on the payroll to spend that down. So that's the dynamic that's at work this year, and that's why the number is so high. Now, there are some things that we can do that I think make a lot of sense. So number one, and the thing that jumps out, is because we have so many people going to the academy, we have to outfit them. We also have to pay their tuition. So that's a huge amount of expense that we wouldn't normally see in a given fiscal year that we see this year. Also, because of my retirement and the backfill promotions that are taking place in the ranks of lieutenants and sergeants, we run an assessment center. We run an assessment center for each rank, right? So there's another added expense, something that we wouldn't normally see in any given year. And then, so we're getting to this point where, as I wrap up my career, there are a couple of things that I would like to do. We could do a couple of things with this money, given that this odd dynamic is taking place, and we could do some things that we wouldn't ordinarily have the opportunity to do. One is there's a capital item for a virtual reality training system that's in capital that I believe that the Finance Commission has supported, and we would be able to actually fund that. Given some of this money. We should do I know Deputy Chief Padden would like to do a strategic planning process. A number of departments near here have done that. the time that makes sense to do that is in the changing of a chief. I know Foxborough just went through that. It costs about $20,000 to do that, to take a deep dive and a look at the department about where have we been and where do we need to go next. And then there are smaller items like a couple of electric bikes to augment the traditional pedal-powered bikes that we have, and then some rated ballistic shields to augment the number of shields we have on the road. We have bullet-resistant shields in our radio cars, but most of them will not stop a rifle round. So to have rifle-rated shields, and then we need a couple more shields to begin with. So that's, that's what we're suggested, that's what we recommended. The only other thing that's hanging out there that you might want to think about is that our tasers are no longer purchased, now that they're leased, cost $52,000 a year. Although that has been handled as a capital item to date, it'd be possible to pick up another year of that leasing, given the amount of unspent salary money we have. Again, given the odd dynamic that I've described. I can answer questions about that, but that's how we got to where we are. It wouldn't replicate anytime soon. This was a really odd time, given the circumstances I've described.
Okay, thank you. Are there questions from the board? Mr.
Thank
Plasko.
you. You answered a lot of it, because my main question was how is it we have so much money here to transfer?
Right.
But I guess the question is, a couple of questions on the amounts. Training, can't argue with that, but the amount of time that's left of the year, is that feasible that we're gonna use it?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things. I would have to look at that training. So there's a couple of things. Number one is that we continue to do more mental health training, as you're already familiar with. And then the other is that those newly sighted pistols that were the capital item, that comes with 2 days of training. So in other words, the way you sight that pistol is completely different from the way our officers were trained at the academy and the way that we've been training over the years. So in addition to the firearms training we do now, it involves the entire department going back out to the range for 2 days per officer to learn to fire with a pistol that is sighted in a much different manner. And so that's a big part of it. We're taking people off the road for doing all of that.
Uniforms, is that?
Just-
Oh, I'm sorry.
I just want to clarify, that training school line item is just where we cover the VR system, which is one lump sum. It's not all time training. We're purchasing an item that's going to allow us to do training. And the other piece of it is the Recruit Academy cost, which is outfitting all the new recruits and paying the cost. So that $98,250 on the letter that you're looking at, that's picked up by those. It's not, the training time for salaries, we can pick up within our salary budget, and we're okay with. That's where those numbers come in. A little confusing, sorry about that.
I misspoke, now I see what you're referring to. Yeah.
Thank you. So uniforms, is this something, because we have a little extra money, we want to go forward, or did we already overexpend, and this is just how we're going to pay for that overexpenditure?
No, a lot of it has to do with bringing on new officers. So when we bring new officers, we send them to the academy, we outfit them. They wear khakis while they're in the academy. They wear a different belt.
I don't know who they are anymore.
They wear khakis and ball caps and a different kind of belt and all that sort of thing. And then as they near graduation, we outfit them in blue. So it's the uniform like you're seeing here, which is a completely different uniform. So yeah, there is that uniform expense that we incur when we send new people to the academy.
We can't attribute all of it to Sally then?
To what?
We can't attribute it all to Sally then?
No, it doesn't go to
There's
all. No,
there's
Sally's pretty low maintenance.
Other officers involved?
She eats a lot, but she's pretty low in uniform.
All right, I guess the other question is, in your explanation, some of this money, or a lot of this money, is people opting to take time instead of money. It's nice to have the money left over, but is that putting an extra stress on the department? Seems like an awful lot of vacancies you would have had for staffing the department.
So it's a balance, like I say, I wasn't here when that benefit was extended, and I talked about the number of shifts that involves. It is an opportunity for officers to earn overtime to fill those shifts, but not all of those shifts are filled with overtime. So it is a balance. Right now, I think we're in balance. It does seem to work. We can manage it, and that we have all of these additional shifts that are granted by the same token, you have officers willing to work them and officers that can work some overtime. So that item, that item within the budget that pays for our holidays, it's still underspent, which allows us the source for these transfers I've talked about. But then a chunk of it is spent on overtime, because as one officer takes his holiday as time off, some of those shifts, and it's almost impossible to figure out the percentage, but a number of those shifts are then filled with overtime as other officers backfill.
So just real quick, that we don't get taxed on that. It doesn't tax the department because we have a minimum standard that we never go below. And depending on the time of the year when those shifts are taken off, allows us whether or not we're really tapping our overtime budget. So there's no way to predict it, but we're pretty good as far as that goes.
So when we do like this year's budget, I don't know if it's for you or Mr. Mizuko, we do this year's budget, are we still budgeting 100%, or are we anticipating that we could have cut back some on this account?
So it's always been my understanding, in the 12 years I was here, and then in the years my predecessors were here, it's my understanding that the town had an obligation to fully fund what's provided for on the contract, which is holiday pay, right? So that'd be the town's obligation to fund that. In other words, if there was a shift in culture, if people change their minds and said, would like to start taking that pay, that money has to be there. And it is workable. I know it's not perfect, because you'd like to see us do no transfers and have everything work out. But it is that we just underspend this line, and this 4% portion of the budget that is our expenses has traditionally been lots of years level funded year to year. And we take that underspent money on the salary side, and we can move it over in May and pay down our bills, sometimes medical bills, which are very, unpredictable for us. And we make it work, and it's worked every year I've been here. It's worked for my predecessors, and it's not a perfect system because it's not by design, but in practical application, it works.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes,
Just one
Mr.
more if
Plasko.
I may. I'm sorry, did you want to say?
No.
This is great, the explanation's great. Thank you for all that. And I think this is perfect, when we have a town meeting come into the spring, we make sure we do transfers that need to be done.
Right.
And hopefully the only thing left at the end of the year for like municipal relief transfers are very minimal things, that something has come up urgent from today to the end of the year. Not because we didn't come to town meeting and waited for the end of the year to make those municipal relief transfers.
Right.
Which puts the question on Mr. Mizuko. This is the only one on this paper. You have no others?
I will never guarantee that there are no others. We are still reviewing what's needed for internal transfers, and as you know, there's a bit of a cutoff date that we say, does it look like we're going to need an internal transfer or not? This is the first year we're using the compensated absences fund, so that's requiring a little bit more deep diving into where we would normally see more transfers. So I would anticipate less than we historically have seen, because we won't need to make transfers in small departments for payouts of sick or vacation time. Now, that doesn't mean as we get closer to the end of the year, we realize, hey, we didn't quite get it right, somebody came on and there was a weak transition, and maybe we do need $1,000 or $1,500 here and there. We are still reviewing them in detail. Jeff and I haven't had a chance to sit down in detail and go through them and make sure what we present to the board, what goes to town meeting, what gets transferred at the end of the year is accurate. So I don't think we'll have any more in the next few days. I could be wrong, but we're doing, I don't want to say better in the past. The compensated absences is removing the need for some transfers.
So my editorial comment is, and you know my philosophy, that should have been done for this meeting. And the only thing, as I said a minute ago, should be anything that happens unexpectedly from today to the end of the year. Otherwise, I don't like municipal relief transfers, if that can be explained to me. Thank you for your indulgence.
No problem.
I agree.
Other comments from the board?
Mr. Chairman, I think Amanda had her hand up.
Ms. Grow, please.
Thank you. I just had a question about the virtual training component of the training line. Is that something that is a one-off purchase where you get VR and then you're good to go, and then if we need to update that or there's any changes to it in the future, we would have to then choose to go buy into the next edition of it? Or is it something where there's going to be sort of a license fee ongoing?
Yeah, I suppose all of this technology stuff has the potential to be upgraded down the road. I don't see any of that. It's my understanding that the software and the scenarios that come with it would last for a period of time. And so I don't see that. You know, there are all sorts of scenario-based training systems for police out there, and most of them involve large screens and projectors and all that, and the officers put into a scenario. We really don't have the room at the police station for that. This system you actually wear, right? So virtual reality, it looks like almost like the size of an iPhone. It's strapped to your face, and then you see you see on the screen in front of you what's going on, and you hear the sound coming over the system as well. So it really would allow the officer and the instructor to be in a fairly small place where we do have space to do that. And so that's the nature of it. That's how it's designed. As far as how far out before we could purchase additional scenarios, it'll continue to work. Will there be additional scenarios down the road as society and policing, develops? I'm sure that there will be, but we don't anticipate any in the near future from what I know of this system.
So it's not a case of if we, next year you still have to fund, access to the scenarios because it's run by a third-party platform. You're just able to keep using the ones that we've already gotten, and then if we choose to get new ones in the future, that choice is as we choose, right?
That's correct.
Great, thank you. That was my only question. Thank you so much. And I'm so sad that I can't be the person to say hello.
Mr. Sad.
They do a great job. I have total confidence in both of them, and I just want to say that is your last meeting here, Mr. Chief. I want to say thank you. I'm wearing this hat for you too, and it's a small world as you look at it. Chris and I started coaching football probably, oh my God, Bobby Conner was the offensive coordinator, and Chris and I were the defensive coordinators for Pop 1, B team with D team, I don't remember, but we had an incident, fast forward that probably 7 or 8 years with the chief and some kids, and he came back from Ohio to be a line flagman for us, and did a great job, and he was a man of his word, and I just want to thank him, and we're going to miss him for his retirement, and I know he'll be back, and I know Chris will have a great job filling his shoes. So, Chief, I want to thank you for all your help you've done for Norwood.
Thank you for your kind words. It's been a pleasure and an honor.
Thank you.
Mr. Lee.
Thank you. Just want to say thank you for your insight and the explanation of these transfers, and I think it's your experience and your history. You're able to articulate the need, and I think that makes everyone comfortable with what you're proposing. So I appreciate that. I'm sure your successor will do the same thing for us in the future. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Chief, if I had known you were going to talk about virtual reality, I would have asked you to bring the device here and demonstrate for us. I think I missed an opportunity there.
We don't have it yet.
Oh, okay.
Then we need the money.
We need
Can
the money
fake
for
it.
it. We need the money. I'm glad you said it.
As always, when I first saw this article, it was kind of eye-popping in that the amount of transfer was necessary. But as always, has been your experience. Our experience with you is that you provide very good detailed explanations. There's there's no questions that we have pertaining to the validity of the numbers, which I really appreciate. I think the only question I have, and I think you've answered it earlier, is that if there were some intent on the town's part to either change or modify the paid holiday language, that would be a labor contract negotiation. That's something that we would have to enter into a future negotiation if we anticipate we want to do that in any event.
You're correct, because
Okay.
both the benefit and then the officer's ability to take it his time are both in the collective bargaining agreements in both unions. So it would be, you're right.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. With no further questions?
And so, we have Mr. O'Neill here. Everything sounds good to you?
Yes, oh yeah, absolutely. No worries with this one.
Got a couple of police officers here. What are you going to say? Very well. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're all set.
Good night.
To my earlier
Want to do these one at a
questions,
time?
do you want to do them one at a time? So at this point, we've had, we see the warrant, Article number 1, we see the yellow sheet explanation. Would the board entertain a motion to approve and support the Article 1?
Yeah, I might make a motion to include Article 1 as proposed and for the board to support.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor? I will do a roll call vote. Ms. Grow?
Yes.
Mr. Lane?
Yes.
Mr. Sad?
Yes.
Mr. Plasko?
Yes.
Chair votes yes as well. We're moving into Article 2, appropriations to LifeWorks, ARC, parens SNARK. Mr. Mizuko or Mr. Rosen, if you could just give us a rundown of this particular warrant article for discussion.
Sure, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll jump off and then Mr. Wilson can jump in if needed. In our budget for many years, probably going back more than 20 years, we have included an allocation to LifeWorks, formerly known as SNARK, which is how many folks know it. It is an outside agency that does provide services to individuals with certain disabilities in the community. We've eliminated that allocation for this year. We are one of the last communities in Norfolk County that still funds an outside agency like this. Most towns have stopped that. There's only a handful that do, one or two that do it at a much lower rate than we do. The money does go to a good cause. It does go to an organization that provides services. It is, however, an outside agency. We have eliminated that from the budget due to our budgetary constraints. This article is on here in the event that the selectmen want to consider providing that funding, and should town meeting want to fund it for the next several years in 1 year increments. So this would be 5 years, but they wouldn't get all of it at once. It would be drawn down year by year just to provide some stability. It provides them a longer exit period. So effectively the organization can get up to 5 years notice, 3 years, whatever the board decides, that we are ending the funding of the organization. It's similar to the next article.
Questions from the board? Mr. Plasko?
Sorry, I'm opposed to this, Mr. Chairman. I think that I just do not buy the logic of if we gotta take it out of this year's budget, we should fund it for 5 additional years. We either fund it or we don't fund it. And it's a lot cheaper to fund 20,000 than 100,000 out of our free cash and keep some of that free cash available and be able to make the same decision whether we continue supporting the organization year by year instead of giving up that 100,000 this year. I may be missing something, but to me it makes no sense at all. And I think we either put it back in the budget or we take it out, but I don't support Article 2 at all.
Any other questions from the board? Mr. Sad?
Being new in the board here, I guess I'm on the same page as Bill. Why are we funding somebody for 5 years? Is this a common practice, what we do here in Norwood?
No, so the line's being eliminated. To put up money for 5 years would give the organization sort of an easier exit. You don't have to go 5 years, but the idea being that, look, if the money is there, we'll fund this for up to the next 5 years, and then you're out. It just would give the organization, and they're a large organization, but it would give them up to 5 years to adjust for losing that funding.
Okay.
Not even sure it's legal, but.
Yeah.
Any other comments, questions from the board?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Lane.
So, I know in budget balancing, we had discussed this article, well, what relates to this article and what relates to the next article with the funding for the nurse's position. But I don't remember, and correct me if I'm wrong, I just don't recall talking about sort of this being the plan, this sort of 5-year cushion.
No.
Mr. Plasko or Mr. Mizuko, I'm not certainly,
I think when we
I'm not
had,
making accusations.
I think we had a meeting with the Finance Commission reviewing the budget, and I think the manager briefly said maybe we might do something and kind of threw it out there, but there's been no discussion or real focus on it.
Yeah. So I think, similar to what you were saying, Mr. Plasko, you know, I understand sort of the expectation if we've done this for a long time and all of a sudden to not do it could be harsh for that organization or for the school. But I think I'd be more apt to, like you said, fund it for this year and say this is the last year we're going to fund it. Because I don't believe we did that last year. I think we just funded these, right?
Yeah.
I'd be more in favor of that sort of approach as opposed to this 5-year lump sum.
So and just to be clear, as the board can go whatever direction you so choose, 1 year, 3 years, we wouldn't be cutting a check all at once. The idea is we'd be putting the appropriation aside
Yeah,
and continue with the 1 year.
No,
Just want to make sure that that's clear.
No, thank you. Yeah, that's what I meant.
But as I said, it is the board's warrant, and it is your decision whether you include it, exclude it, or change that amount, or number of years, or anything, any combination thereof.
You're trying to suggest taking a vote now, but only paying it out once each in the next 5 years?
Correct.
I don't think that's even legal.
I think we wouldn't want to cut that amount of the check to an outside agency in the event something happens to that outside agency, so the town will hold on to it with an appropriation with the idea that it's being dispersed in that manner. I would not feel comfortable cutting 5 years at once. And to your point, you could have it on the warrant every year. A town meeting member could submit a petition article to include or to amend the budget. You could do it for 1 year. It is entirely up to the board's discretion. This was put here to give an option to ease the exit if you so choose.
Ms. Grow.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I have two questions. One is, refresh my memory. I believe we've had representatives from this organization in to see us. I can't remember when, but we had been in to see us before, correct?
Yes.
Correct.
And from them coming to see us, does anybody recall the nature of, if we go from, previously they were getting money, and then we go from that to zero, if we choose to basically not include this year, do we have a sense of what the direct impact is to the people that they were serving?
There would be no direct impact in the sense that their service area includes Norwood. So it's not like we're cutting 5 or 6 Norwood residents out of any service. They're a regional nonprofit service agency that provides those services. Their budget, I can try to pull up their 990, is fairly large, so it's not like a Norwood resident would lose, per se, a service. They're not going to get a call one day saying, hey, we're no longer able to provide services. Now, as the organization as a whole loses funding, it makes their ability to deliver services a challenge. That being said, most towns, at least in Norfolk County, that work with the Norfolk Guard have stopped supporting this quite a while ago. It's a rarity for us to support an outside agency, or for a town to support an outside agency like this.
And then a follow-up question to that is, the reason for that rarity, is it liability related?
No, it's a combination of a few things. One is just the general budgetary pressure that as towns face budgetary pressure like we do, we are funding an outside nonprofit agency that it's nice to have, but generally we're not in the business and local government in Massachusetts of that type of funding. Some towns have cited the anti-aid amendment that we're not able to provide assistance to another organization as a constitutional issue in Massachusetts. The workaround, what we do in that case is we do have a contract for services, which we technically do for them and for the amount that we give to the organization every year.
Thank you, those are my questions.
Thank you, Ms. Grove. Yes, I think they were here December of last year. They made a presentation, and I did bring the information to refresh my memory. Several members of LifeWorks were here. It was a good presentation, and they thanked us for our support and documented a number of program services provided to Norwood residents that may be different from their overall budget, but their estimate was that the level of services provided to Norwood residents is the vicinity of $4.8 million, mostly through family care, group homes, and other residential programs and so forth. I see that. Yes?
Sorry, if I could just, Mr. Chairman, one of the things that I think keep in mind that frames this discussion, because it seems like, gee, we're really having hard over $20,000 for our organization. We had to make cuts to the general government budget this year. We're cutting back on how much roads we're paving. So when you look at the totality of just trying to get our budget through the level that we're deficit spending, we are reducing services to residents, direct services for next year. That's why this didn't make it into the budget, if you will. And we're looking at, does the board want to continue? This might be an option. We have free cash now, we may not in 2 years. That's not a reason to spend it. But as part of the discussion is, this is just, we're trying to give you, I guess, an option if you should want to.
Understood. And I'm also sensitive to providing somewhat of a good notice period to the organization regarding the current and future potential for town support for their programs. I'm sensing from the committee that there is some reluctance for a 5-year funding mechanism. Perhaps at this point, I will open it up for discussion from the board. Is there an alternative motion to be made regarding modification to this warrant? If so, I'll entertain a motion to that effect.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Plasko.
I don't know if I have it in a motion, firm enough motion, but my personal thought is that we do not include Article 2, that we support SNAC's annual appropriation this year. We put it back in the budget. If our calculation is that there is no more room in the budget, then we increase the fee that we're already gonna use from free cash by the needed $20,000. And that's the way to fund it. Well, it's gonna come from free cash in either proposal.
Yes. Mr. Hopgarth, I have to limit the discussion to the board members at this point. Mr. Sad.
I'll second, and if the manager or Mike can maybe pull up a balance sheet of this group and just see what kind of holdings they have, if it's worth.
They're about a $2 million operation all in. They bill Medicare for their services. They are not a flush nonprofit, but it's not a group of folks hanging out in somebody's living room either.
Okay. Yeah, I just think myself personally, I wouldn't want to go 5 years, then we can assess it at a future date and say, hey, we're gonna hold 3 more years, 5 more years, 2 more years, 6 years, and then that's another discussion for another day maybe.
Mr. Plasko made a motion to, not from free cash, but to send the $20,000 figure into the operating budget.
The annual budget.
Annual budget. Mr. Sad, you seconded that. From the town side, are there any observations regarding that? Does that poses any accounting or any, Mr. O'Neill?
And Mr. Mizuko can correct me, but the budget has been completed and sent to the printer, so this.
You can do it as an amendment.
You can do it as an amendment, or you can do it in here as in 1 year.
Right.
Which I would probably recommend. It seems to be a little bit more easy to understand and explain.
So, Mr.
I think given, if I could, Mr. Chairman, given that we are through the budget balancing process and we sort of agreed on an overall spending framework, even though that's not really set by anyone other than town meeting, if you want to do 1 year funding, I would agree with Mr. Plasko's idea to do it for 1 year, but I wouldn't try to amend the budget and include a slip sheet. I think just doing it as amending the article, and I know this is not Mr. Plasko's motion, but amending the article to just provide the amount of $20,000 for 1 year might be a little bit cleaner.
Within the operating budget?
Correct.
Okay.
We will certainly do whatever the board wants to have, but I just think that's a
I
cleaner
don't
way
believe
to.
I believe through.
With free cash.
Free
That's a
cash.
special town meeting,
That's a special town meeting, correct.
Okay.
but
Because that was my question, Mr. O'Neill, was that since the budgets have been distributed, we actually have voted on them, the easiest path would be, if we were to designate $20,000 in support of this organization, it would be through free cash this year only, this upcoming year only.
Yeah, through a special town meeting, because you've already voted on the budgets, those have been approved, we've stayed within the budget balancing guidelines.
We would just amend the yellow sheet.
can we do an annual appropriation from next year and this year?
For this one, so you're making the assumption that you're funding this for 1 more year, and then we'll have to deal with this next year's budget cycle. I think it's just cleaner for everybody, because you're not getting up there and then adding to the budget and having now we're going up more than the budget balancing FinCom and then.
So we leave this article, we go to town meeting, and the motion is for $20,000, and we change all this wording in the yellow sheet.
Correct.
Yes.
So moved.
So on the modified motion from Mr. Plasko for $20,000 for free cash for this upcoming fiscal year, do I have a second?
I'll
Mr.
second
Sad, Mr.
Oh, sorry.
On the motion, I'll take a roll call vote. Ms. Grow?
Yes.
Mr. Lane?
Yes.
Mr. Sad?
Yes.
Mr. Plasko?
Yes.
Chair votes yes as well. Article
We will make
3.
the
Thank you, Mr.
Sorry.
Mizuko. You'll make the
We will make the
appropriate
appropriate
modification to the article in the yellow sheet.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mike's got it under control.
Mike has it.
Yep.
All right. Article 3, similarly to Article 2, this is appropriation to St. Catherine's of Siena School nurse. Questions from the board?
It's basically the same thing,
Yeah.
same issues, same points. So I would try the same, keep it short unless other people want to take the floor like I usually do. And make the motion that we insert Article 3, but for 1-year appropriation from free cash, and redo the yellow sheet to show that. And the
In
board,
the amount of 38,000.
and on both of these would be the board unanimously supports them.
Okay. Do I have a second on that amendment?
Second.
Mr. Lane, any discussion on the amendment? Been moved and seconded. Roll call vote on Article 3. Ms. Grow?
Yes.
Mr. Lane?
Yes.
Mr. Sad?
Yes.
Mr. Plasko?
Yes.
And chair votes yes as well. Article 4, School Department Capital Improvement Plan Request. On this particular article, I guess I'll just remind the board that several weeks ago, we did see the detail from coming out of the Capital Outlay Committee. They met in March to review the IT requests from the schools, and the Capital Outlay Committee reviews capital requests for IT from the schools in the spring as opposed to the fall, which is our regular period of time when we consider capital requests. Historically, we have considered school requests in the springtime for a couple of reasons. One is from an IT perspective. It's much more advantageous for the schools to make these purchases now and install them over the summer. And secondly, there's a variety of equipment that's included in the $156,000 figure that is subject to a federal E-rate discount that they can take advantage of at this point in time. So that's just by way of explanation. Did I miss anything, Mr. Rosen, on that?
No, well said. Capital Outlay voted unanimously to approve this article, and yeah, the timeline is such that it has to do with the E-rate reimbursement, so otherwise all other capital is being handled in the fall.
With that, any discussion on Article 4, CIP, Request IT School? Do we have a motion?
Motion to include Article 4 and to support it.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Mr. Lane. Roll call vote. Ms. Grow?
Yes.
Mr. Lane?
Yes.
Mr. Sad?
Yes.
And Mr. Plasko?
Yes.
Mr. Donnelly votes yes.
Third person.
I know, I feel like getting bad when you refer to yourself as the third person. Chair votes yes. Article 5, this is the appropriation to the School of Origin Transportation Pilot Program. By way of background, is my understanding that this is an article submitted by the school department. This is an article in the verbiage from the yellow sheet and the warrant is school department?
Correct, school committee.
School committee, thank you. Mr. Mizuko or Mr. Rosen, do you have anything more to add to this particular item that we should be aware of? It is from the school department?
No, other than it's just, Mr. O'Neill can speak to it as well, it's just ensuring that there's money to cover these costs. The reimbursement from the state tends to come in later, that'll eventually close to free cash.
Any discussion and questions on Article 5? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve and support Article 5.
And do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Sad seconds. On Article 5, roll call vote will be taken. Ms. Grow?
Yes.
Mr. Lane?
Yes.
Mr. Sad?
Yes.
Mr. Plasko?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Article 6, this is also a school committee article. Article 6 is an appropriation to the Emergency Connectivity Reimbursement Funds. Anything from the town on this particular article that we should be aware of? It is a school committee request once again, so.
No, Mr. Chairman, other than again, it was money that was expended and then grant funding received, so it's just making sure that the money's going to its intended purpose.
This is to finish the current year, correct?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you, Mr. Plasko.
That's to finish the current year. They need more money to get through this year.
They spent budgetary money on a program that was reimbursed by the grant. They'd like to make sure that the grant continues to pay for IT and technology related items.
You know about that?
Yeah, so basically what this was is they made the purchase in fiscal '23, were reimbursed in fiscal '24. So now they have the additional funds that they want to use for the same purpose, to purchase the Chromebooks that they originally got the grant for.
Thank you.
On Article 6, are there any more questions? If none, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve and support Article 6 as written.
Mr. Lane has motion, Mr. Plasko has seconded. Roll call vote on Article 6. Ms. Grow.
Yes.
Mr. Lane.
Yes.
Mr. Sad.
Yes.
Mr. Plasko.
Yes.
Chair votes yes as well. And moving on to Article 7. This is an appropriation for extended day expenses. This is a town article. So Mr. Rosen, Mr. Mizuko, Mr. O'Neill, who wants to speak to it?
I'll jump in here,
All
Mr.
right.
Chairman, just to explain this. It's not, it's an appropriation of free cash for the extended day program, which the town takes over as of July 1st. The school extended day program has a fund balance in it. We simply can't, because of the way Massachusetts municipal finance law works, we can't simply transfer money from the school fund to the town fund. What we can do is appropriate the first $400,000 of expenses, which is what's anticipated to be left in the school extended day fund. That fund will close to free cash. So this is really, there's no net change here. It's just the way we have to play the game of moving money around to get the fund balance from the school program to the town program.
Going from one pocket to the other.
Correct. And we've spoken to the Department of Revenue about this, and they've told us that there's no other statutory framework that contemplates what we're doing, so this is the way that we have to do it.
You have a more elegant way than saying, play the game?
That's what we're doing.
Thank you.
I think as Mr. Mizuko said, this was told to us and this is how you're going to do it.
When DOR speaks, we listen.
We have to listen, yes.
Any other questions or comments on Article 7?
Motion to approve.
Mr. Sad has made a motion to approve and support Article 7.
Second.
And Mr. Lane has seconded. Moving on to roll call vote. Ms. Grow.
Yes.
Mr. Lane.
Yes.
Mr. Sad.
Yes.
Mr. Plasko.
Yes.
Chair votes yes as well. We move on now to Article 8. This is the authorization to rescind Fire Department civil service provisions. I think I have a understanding that Mr. Mizuko, is perhaps this is something you want to speak to?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have successfully concluded a negotiation with 1631, our fire union, for the fire department to exit civil service. As you're aware, we did this with the police department maybe 10 years ago. And with the agreement with our union, we are able to begin the process of having the fire department exit civil service, which will have a substantial help once we're there in recruitment and easing the hiring process. I just want to thank the Paul Rocco and the members of 1631. They really worked with the town on this, and we were able to put something together pretty good, and this is going to be very good for the department. And as we move forward, it's going to help ease some of the staffing issues we have. And I know most cities and towns are facing staffing issues with paramedics in particular. We want to be ahead of the game and maintain our department staff the best that we can.
From the board? I have one question. So I've been hearing that the negotiations with the fire department went very well this year. In terms of process, when would the timing of, has the fire union ratified the agreement as of yet? Or is that still pending?
Yes.
They have? Okay.
Yes. We have internal work to do. So this isn't a rush. It isn't sort of town meeting passes it on the 13th should they decide to do so on the 14th. Yay, we're all done. We have to sit down and work out some policies and some practices, similar to what we did with the police department. But the next step is the town meeting vote.
And I believe if we still had Chief Brooks here, he would speak to his history of the advantages of moving the police department from civil service to the town HR functions. So,
correct.
Any other questions?
Motion to wholeheartedly include and support.
Article 8 has been motioned by Mr. Plasko. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Lane. Roll call vote on Article 8. Ms. Grow?
Yes.
Mr. Lane?
Yes.
Mr. Sad?
Yes.
Mr. Plasko?
Yes.
And Chair. I think I'll be reciting that in my sleep tonight. Moving on. Article 9, acceptance of Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53F and a half, to establish a local stormwater enterprise fund. I know we have a variety of folks here to talk about this particular article. May I open up, who wants to speak first for the background on the establishment of an enterprise fund for this utility?
Mr. Chairman, if you want, I can sort of kick it off, and then I believe Mr. Ryan, Mr. Hopcroft are there, as well as others. This is, at this stage, a perfunctory move that we have to do this fiscal year if the board intends to assess or create a stormwater fee in next year. It's not putting the cart before the horse. We have to do this before the start of the fiscal year to be able to take any action during the fiscal year. And it's much cleaner and easier to do it prior to the start of the fiscal year. The Department of Revenue has said they strongly recommend not trying to set up an enterprise fund in the middle of the year. So this is somewhat perfunctory at this point, but town meeting approving an enterprise fund, we can still go back. It doesn't mean the board has to approve a stormwater fund. This is setting up the accounting mechanism. If we have any intention of doing it next fiscal year, now is the time to set this up. And I guess I'll defer to maybe Mr. O'Neill next, if he wants to add anything, if you're okay with that, and then we have others that can fill in as needed.
So just, I'll open it up for questions. So this is not an appropriation, this isn't a money article at all, this is purely an accounting mechanism?
Yes, sir.
Mr. O'Neill?
Correct. Just to reiterate what Mr. Mizuko said, and I'll read directly from DLS notifications. The Bureau of Accounts recommends that commencement begin at the start of a fiscal year. So again, it is them telling us, hey, if you want to set this up, this is when you do it, it's best practice, this is the way you should do it. So again, the fund can sit there. If it does not take in any revenues, that's okay. We have the fund set up. There's a lot of work to do behind the scenes after that, but this is only to set that fund up so it is ready to go when and if the decision is made.
You say the best practice is to what? Set up the fund?
At the beginning of the fiscal year.
Can I open it up for questions from the board? Mr. Sad.
I don't even know why we're doing this, but that's another story. I think the stormwater was a 100-year storm. The design of the Norwood Hospital was horrible. They created their own problems. This is a huge tax. We've got all the roads tied. If we clean the catch basins and add some more and add a pipe near what's next to it, it's gonna save us a lot of money in tax on people. The people are taxed out right now. And I'm telling you, if you bring this to a town vote, they are not gonna approve it, period. I don't care what town meeting does, they're gonna fight it. People are mad as hell. I don't think we need it. If we have another 100-year storm, people have to get flood insurance. I lost 3 properties. I'm not complaining, but the fact is that this is a huge tax for the rest of their lives on stormwater, not groundwater, stormwater. I'm 100% against this, and I don't think the taxpayers can afford any more of this. And that's all I have to say.
Maybe Mr. Ryan, if you Mr. O'Neill's addressed sort of the financial mechanism background as to the enterprise fund. Why don't we hear from Mr. Ryan, and then we have 2 committee members here who could speak. It's the committee's recommendation to the enterprise fund. We'll move on from there. But Mr. Ryan, just from an overall perspective, you provided the board with a list of projects that would, if implemented, a financial structure would support projects out to, as I'm looking at this list, FY 2034. Could you give us just an overview as to the capability of the system today and why these projects are advantageous to the town?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Norwood's done a great job the past few years upgrading its water system, upgrading its sewer system, upgrading the roads, upgrading bridges, but the ugly stepchild has been drainage, and drainage has been ignored for many years. Since I've been here, I started in 1999, minimal investment has been made in drainage because it's not something that people thought that was important until a storm event happened. We all know June of '98, storm hit and we lost the police and fire station. And we went ahead and did a drainage study in 2022. They recommended improvements just in the Meadowbrook area, about $8.3 million worth of work. We ignored all those recommendations for a reason. I mean, budgets were tight. We had a lot of different projects coming ahead of it, schools, police and fire station replacement. Fortunately, eventually beat DPW, but in June of 2020, we got hit again. And it's not just the hospital, which the hospital was lost because of their poor infrastructure, but the whole town was flooded. You couldn't get anywhere. Any low point in the road was flooded out. Police and fire, we've got pictures showing them staging outside of the police and fire station because in front of the police and fire was flooded. The station wasn't, but the roads were. So it's something we need to address, and we haven't addressed. So $8.3 million back in 2002 was the estimate. Now we're talking $41 million. So we kicked the can down the road far too long. We have to start addressing drainage in this town. And it's just, it's not a want, it's a need. It's a need for the town to function properly, but it's also a requirement of the EPA. In 2016, you have MS4 come along where you have to address water quality and flooding. Every municipality, not every municipality, just about all of them in Massachusetts and throughout the country. And a lot of effort has to be put into that. A lot of expense has to be put into that. And if you don't do that, you're subject to fine. So we really have to start addressing this. And this is the best way to do it, is start looking at an enterprise fund, start looking at ways to fund it. Stormwater utility fee is one of them, but we have to start addressing it now. We haven't this didn't just arise, okay? 2018, we started looking at this enterprise fund. We slowly worked at it, and then, you know, lo and behold, we got hit with the catastrophic storm of 2020, and it's time we took care of business around here with the drainage system.
If I may, before we open up for further comment and questions, we do have Mr. Slater and Mr. Hopcroft from the Stormwater Utility Committee. If you want to address, a series of recommendations was made by the committee. In full disclosure, I'm a member of that. Do either of you want to just give us an overview of the kind of things you looked at in terms of alternatives to financing a stormwater work and what your conclusions were in terms of the best vehicle for financing such work?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I mean, we looked at a number of options. We also had a consultant from CDM Smith, Joe Ridge, who helped us through the process. And essentially, there are three ways to fund this. I mean, one of which is simply to fund it as part of your overall budget. Just look at it as a capital item. It goes on the capital budget. It goes on to debt service. The other way to do it is do it as an override. The way that communities have been looking to do this in Massachusetts as well as nationwide, there were over 2,000 districts nationwide, is to do a utility fee. It seemed to make the most sense. The committee supported that, and that was the recommendation of our report.
Thank you. Mr. Hopcroft, anything to add to Mr. Slater's observations?
Even if we do the minimalist approach that Mr. Sad is suggesting, you have to pay for it.
Okay.
You have to pay for it. And a fee is way better and less intrusive than a tax. So we recommend the enterprise fund to create the fee. That's our recommendation. It's your decision.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments from the board? Mr. Lane.
Thank you. Thanks. We've seen a lot of this group over the past year or two. So I appreciate the work that's been put in. Just to talk about some of the, I know we're just talking about the fee, and we probably have another opportunity to get more into the details, but when we're talking about the impervious area, I know that, you know, probably one of the things that people will ask if this fee is established, the first question will be, how much am I going to pay for this? We talked about a single-family home, and I think having about 3,400 square feet of impervious area. Can you maybe, for the people at home and for myself, sort of talk about, like, size-wise, what that looks like, and in terms of, You know, is that like your average?
That comes from measuring the area of the building footprint, the roof, and by the way, it doesn't matter whether it's a flat roof, or a tipped roof, or a hip roof, or any kind of roof. It's the outside perimeter that counts. Roof area of any outbuildings like garages and sheds, and the driveway and the sidewalks. And C.D.M. Smith took a sampling throughout the town, averaged the areas per individual house, and came up with that round number.
Mm-hmm.
And we looked at those numbers they did, and they seemed reasonable to us. They're also consistent with other municipalities
And how they've
who have done
structured.
similar sorts of analysis. That approach, by the way, of household unit is probably 90% of the way, is the way that 90% of the towns that do this calculate the fee. And then if you get an area bigger than that, you pay multiples.
Mhm. Thank you, appreciate that. Yeah, I think just my take on it, Mr. Chairman, if I could, is, you know, in the way that we have funded certain things, I know it's not apples to apples, but with new schools and, you know, sort of that community feel of your house may not flood, so you may not think that this is something that you should be responsible for, but I think as a community, you know, if I'm a single-family home owner, I don't mind this $54 fee to help try and solve this problem, which has been presented as the only way we're gonna make progress and solve it is to do these projects. And I think a lot of people feel that way. And I understand, you know, there are people that do not, and totally respect your opinion, Mr. Sad, and the people who you've talked to. But I do think, as Mr. Ryan said, if we keep kicking this down the road, it's just gonna get worse. And so I'm appreciative of the work that the committee has done to put this together, and I think, Mr. Mizuko, you may have said this before, but we gotta make a decision. You know, it's time to make a decision. So, that's where we're at.
May I just go to
Okay,
Mr. Plasko
go.
first?
Yep, go
Mr. Sad, and then Ms. Grove, if she has to come. Mr. Plasko?
Thank you. I've got to tell you, I've been here a long time, and this is probably one of the most difficult issues I've been trying to deal with. I was on the original committee that came up with the idea of trying to go forward and do this. I forget, I don't know if you have the information, Mr. Ryan, I think it was somewhere around $8 million at the time. Now we're talking $41 million. I was upset that we didn't go forward then, but it was because $8 million was a lot of money then, and people couldn't see doing it. And I don't want to stick my head in the sand. I think it's the things all of you have said that need to be addressed. It should be addressed, not stick our head in the sand, as I said. But at the same time, I'm concerned about, as Mrs. Sad says, I've heard from more people on this than anything I've really heard people on when it comes to dollars and cents, and how can we support this, because they can't imagine what it does for them. They think they spend a lot of money and don't know what the results will be. There's been a lot of changes since our original study in the town. Additional runoff, how do we know this is gonna handle it? What's this gonna do for us? And I don't have a way to answer those questions satisfactorily, quite frankly. And, you know, they throw at me the high school, the middle school, the operational override, another anticipated operational override being talked about by people, and they say they just can't handle it anymore. How do we throw more money at them? So I'm really torn between what I think is the right thing to do and whether or not this is the right time to do it. I'm also torn because, as you know, I worry about procedure, and we've got this roadmap of how to proceed. You know, take this vote tonight and another vote in August and go down the road, and I'm just not totally comfortable with what I've seen there. Not sure. We've already had from, I think it was March 1st, a recommendation from the general manager, or at least might only be talked about tonight as one recommendation, but of how to maybe fund and finance and proceed, borrowing and so forth. And I don't know that I like that. And yet we're not talking about that, because we're not going to talk about it to the future. And I'm always afraid that when we take a little nibble here, and then we go down the road, we're like, end up tied into something. And so if I'm not comfortable with the whole process, I'm not sure how to proceed. So I am really torn. I think I would support an article and have further discussion, let town meeting really decide this. It's a big money issue that probably should be a town thing and not end here because we vote 5-0 or 3-2 or whatever to kill it and not send it to town meeting. But I would not vote this evening. I may by town meeting, I may by next year, but tonight I would not vote to actually support it because I'm just not certain that I can at this time. I know I told both yourself and Mr. Slater at different times that I'd come around, but since then I've heard a whole lot more too. That's just pushed back and left me at this very uncomfortable position. So as of tonight, I'm for letting town meeting hear this and decide what they really think is the right thing instead of totally putting it off. But I'm not putting my name as a supporter of it either.
Very well. Ms. Grow?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So a couple things on this. One is the idea of the 100-year storm. You know, even within Chief Brooks's tenure, we've had storm events that either take out the public safety building or threaten the ability of the public safety to get to residents. The point of calling something a 100-year storm is that it's only supposed to happen once a century, but that's way faster than a century. So that's not great, right? To me, we're gonna pay for this one way or another. And to me, this maneuver would be about having a controlled way to pay for it, because the other way we'll pay for it if we do nothing is in the form of natural disasters, weird emergencies, having to send our first responders out to rescue people from their cars on Upland Road. Like that just happened this past quarter. That's like not like a 20 years ago thing, that's this year. So for me, I'd rather attack the problem in a controlled manner rather than the uncontrolled manner of reactively having to expend our emergency and other resources, doing damage control essentially. I had a unique perspective during the 2020 flood because for me, I was on Manhattan across from the fire station, and then to get back to my home, I had to weave back through Avalon, down Lenox, attempt to go down Lenox Avenue, but couldn't go that way, had to go up and around and go down Allen, couldn't go that way either. So I was in the storm, the nice dangerous conditions, seeing the flow of the water moving through the town, in the throes of it. And Murphyfield was essentially a lake. And then all of the surrounding streets, completely gone. And the other thing we also have to remember about the stormwater is that the place where it all sort of bottoms out at the bottom of the town there, the Meadowbrook is wicked contaminated compared to many of the other bodies of water in the town. So when that water gets out of control from the storm and gets sloshed around the town, it's sloshing around contaminants into basements, onto children. Like it's really bad. And I just cannot imagine us saying that we're going to wait and do nothing when the problems are eating us now. There's people think about the price of money, but there's also a price to not choosing to do a purchase when you should have. Think of it like dentistry. If I choose to not do my, dental hygiene appointments because it's, either, a stretch in the budget or whatever, it's way more pricey if I have to then do a root canal or I have to undergo an oral surgery down the road because I didn't do those earlier steps. And that's kind of where we are. Like, it was $8 million back then, now it's up to 40. Well, that's not going to get better after today. The problems will continue to get worse. We have 300% more rainfall in our region. That is not going to change. The water that's coming out of the ice caps and going on the planet, it's going in the water system and it's got to land somewhere. And right now, it's landing on us. And it's only going to get worse, so we need to be prepared to do something. So I'm in favor of bringing this to the body. I want the body to discuss it. I would like the discussion not just end with us. I really want town meeting members to be able to talk about it. For people that it's going to be a financial hardship, want to hear from them. From people who are like, oh my God, we need to do something with the water, want to hear from them. I really would like to see this go forward to be discussed by the body, people to be able to continue to ask questions of the committees that have done the research on this, particularly for people that are like, oh, we could do this, we could do that. I want to have those ideas talked through and talk about why they are or are not viable alternatives. So that's my stance on it.
Thank you, Ms. Grove. I can see all viewpoints here. I understand certainly concerns regarding the cost. It's a big cost. Yeah, we have in the past, Norwood has shown that it has the capacity to understand when big infrastructure projects are needed. We're halfway through water relining, $4.5 million over 10 years. It's a $45 million project. It's being done. It's being done almost seamlessly because we have a revenue stream that was able to do that infrastructure work, namely the water rates. We are probably ending, I think, Mark, the 5-year program for road repaving, the advanced program. That's $14 million over 5 years that we've done to catch up with our road maintenance funded through the operating budget. So we do know how to do these things. Tonight's article, I believe, is a first step in that it does not require an investment of $40 million of borrowed money to do these projects. It is simply to establish an accounting mechanism that makes us eligible to do such work if the board down the line does determine that a stormwater fee is the best vehicle for funding this work. So I am in favor of going to town meeting and seeking approval to establish this fund. I think the challenge to the board and to the town basically is the period of time between May 13th when special town meeting meets and probably more like the September timeframe when we would need to consider a financial structure to support this work. I think there are a number of things that we need to be done, particularly to address Mr. Plasko and Mr. Sad's observations, and that is, I think, public information, public hearings, more information to just get out to the public the rationale as to why these projects are needed and what the consequences of not doing these projects would be. Everybody talks a lot about Norwood Hospital in 2020, and that certainly was a combination of stormwater plus some deficiencies in their own building construction. But people often lose sight of the fact that that particular storm had a big impact in the community beyond the loss of the hospital. The town put forward a program of grants, which over 100 families took advantage of. The town supported them in replacing and costing and covering some of the cost of the damage that was done to their homes. And I know Mr. Lane was a participant. I was as well, part of the emergency response team that went into the homes of people in the Meadowbrook area, in the Plimpton Avenue, Plimpton Street area, to view the kind of damage that hundreds of homes encountered in June of 2020. And those are only the homes that were eligible for the grant program. Doesn't take into consideration the number of homes that were impacted in 2020. If you had driven through the neighborhoods of Meadowbrook, Sunnyside, Polana Road, Lawndale Road, days after the floods of 2020, it would look like a mini disaster area. People's appliances, their furniture, out on the curb because they had been destroyed by the flood. I also have concerns that looking at the engineering report in 2020, the Stantec engineers observed that the detention basin next to the public safety building came pretty close to being completely filled. And that's reminiscent of the storm in the 1990s, which did take out our public safety building there. So I do believe that there's a good rationale here. I do believe that there's a lot more public education to go on. I do believe we have time to do that. But I think for tonight's meeting, I do intend to vote to put this warrant article on the special town meeting and to support it as well. And then to allow the town to continue to put forward the rationale and the ways and means that we can best address this problem. So.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Sad, I meant to come back to you.
One
Thank
more
you.
couple questions. this 41 million, this is the report that we got 7 or 8 months ago in our report from Syntec or Klondike or that engineering firm. That number is 60 million right now. These aren't true numbers. These are what the numbers they gave us in that book report. And this is, if Hennessy Field doesn't get done, what happens to the stormwater management program? These people down there are mad as heck.
Just an observation, I believe that the total is 41 million. I've never seen a $60 million figure.
No, it was the old one from 1921. I mean, 2021.
I think these are the best updated project estimates,
These are
Mr. Ryan.
2022 estimates.
Yeah.
$41 million.
And that,
Mr. Hopcroft?
I think it's, you're right that these are not real numbers in any sense.
yeah.
First, because you don't get real numbers till you put it out to bid. So you never have a real number. I think it's also important to recognize these are 10-year estimates, only for one watershed. We have 4 or 5 watersheds. We still have Horse Brook we haven't looked at. We have Plantingfield Brook, Purgatory Brook. All of those watersheds need to look at as well, and I think that needs to be done fairly quickly. So I think that we need to recognize that hitting the tax rate with these kinds of numbers is not gonna work. It just isn't gonna work. We haven't got enough mechanisms to do all of that. When you spread it over 10 years, as a user fee, it's much easier on the individuals and way easier to manage. Every single project that gets done is gonna have to be voted on by town meeting. Every single one. This doesn't anticipate any project, except setting up the mechanism to look at later, if you want to use it.
Yeah, well,
Mr. Sad.
my question, on that report though, it was 41 million rough. I think these are engineers. So now, I do a lot of contracting, and since 2 years ago, everything's doubled in the contracting field. Doubled.
I've been doing a lot of estimating myself, and it's coming down again. It's going to change. It's going to go with inflation.
You think it's gonna
Inflation's coming down.
You think the construction costs are gonna come down, materials?
Material costs have come down. I've been watching it.
Okay, so you think it's that 41 million is a solid number?
I did not say that.
What do you think it is today? 50 million, 52 million?
It doesn't matter what it is today.
Okay, so now on the report, Mr. Chairman, on the bottom of that report, if Hennessy Field was built, the report says, in a heavy storm, this may not work. That's a huge bargain to take up for 40, 50, 60 million.
I disagree. I believe what the report says, Mr. Sad, is that no stormwater that you cannot guarantee that there'll be no flooding through the
Hennessy Field.
through the stormwater system entirely, but that the proposed project work, Mr. Ryan can correct me if I'm wrong, would go a long way to mitigate the worst experiences that we have from a stormwater perspective, and that ultimately the system that is not very capable of transferring water from point A to point B very quickly, thus we have flooding, would manage stormwater in a more fast manner to go from downtown, let's say, down to the Hennessy Field into the Meadowbrook.
That's correct, Mr. Chairman. The most populated, densely impervious areas is the Meadowbrook, particularly the center, and that water can't get away fast enough. You can put big pipes in the ground, get it away fast enough, but today's requirements, you have to reduce how fast it gets into the downstream brook, Meadowbrook, and that's why Hennessy Field has to be put in. Hennessy Field would have to be the first thing before we start moving, upstream onto Guile Street, Broadway, and Manhattan Street. The cost for it, those are estimates. There's quite a bit of contingency built into those. Those are 2022. Are they going to be higher? They can be lower. We don't know until we go out to bid, like Mr. Hopcroft said. But we've got a plan ahead. We have ideas how much it's going to cost. It needs to be done. If you really want to address it, if you want to ignore it, like we've done in the past, and deal with this another 20 years from now, so be it. But something really should be done to take care of the issues we have in downtown. Flooding, roads closed, police and fire not being able to get where they need to go, hospital, emergency vehicles trying to get where they need to go. We need to start addressing this. I mean, this is the first step, just creating an enterprise fund, not creating a utility fee. Just have this in place if a fee down the road or whatever funding mechanism comes along. But we can't fix it by throwing in a couple basins and adding another 12-inch pipe. We're far beyond that right now. We have to make some major improvements, especially in the Meadowbrook, per the report. And we have some other areas in town. That $41 million talks about areas outside the Meadowbrook. On Heaton Ave, to handle some drainage problems down there. Robinwood Road, Dean Street drain, we're addressing May 2nd, we're opening bids to handle that. So we're starting to make headway, but we have to stay on course. Take this first step would be the recommendation, and then as far as utility fee, that's the next step. And see if town meeting wants that, see if the selectmen want it, see if the townspeople want
Any further commentary before we move on to motions?
One more,
Yes?
Mr. Chairman, I think, Mark, we're having a meeting on the senior for the Hennessy Field District Thursday night.
Thursday, yep.
And we'll see what people come out for that, because they're mad as heck, and it's not fair that they get the brunt of this mosquito haven, water retention
It's not a
basin.
mosquito haven.
Well, it's right next to
It's
the
not.
Little League field, so they're gonna have some problems over there, and they don't want it, so,
It's
I
not a
just think
mosquito
it's.
haven.
Well, I think, Mr. Mizuko, manager, is there a way to just put $2 million in a fund right now, if there's a future incident, we let them take it right out of that, like we have, extra money? Can we allocate?
A fund for what? For fixing
Damages.
fixing damage from storms?
Yeah,
I mean, sure, if you wanted to waste money, you'd be putting $2 million away every other year, we would never stop. And remember, part of the problem is not just taking care of people's houses when they flood. We have a serious problem getting around town when there's a water issue. It locks us down. I don't know where everyone was in June of the 2020 storm. I was walking traffic down South Road because you couldn't get uptown. It's a serious problem. The idea that we would just say, well, let's throw some money in the fund, and if there's a flood, we'll take care of people's homes. Good God, the liability of what you're opening yourself up to there from a cost perspective is enormous. Absolutely enormous.
so if there was a hurricane, what would we do? A natural
Depending on the
disaster?
level, so if I get it, let me explain. Depending on the level of damage, FEMA sometimes steps in. The reason we've never had a federally declared disaster is because our damages are localized and they're caused by stormwater. That means it's our problem to solve. If you had a hurricane that came through and did $100 million worth of damage or $150 million worth of damage, sure, FEMA would come in, there would be federal money available, they'd be able to take it. But we haven't seen a federal dollar since we've been, probably 50, 60 years that we've had a drainage problem, probably 70 years. I have documents from my predecessor dating back to the early 80s talking about fighting with the town to have to spend money to fix drainage issues we had almost 50 years ago. So the problem's been around for a long time. To think, well, people are gonna get their houses damaged. In what community do you wanna live in where you say, well, every now and then my house gets messed up, but the town just throws me some money and calls it a day? I do not think that is good public policy. We try to help people when there's an emergency. We are rare and unique as a town that we do that. But even to come up with the $400,000 we did the last time, remember, that helped about 100 homes. There were about 150 or 200 that we did nothing for. They were over income, we didn't have the money to be able to handle it, and we did nothing for businesses. We had businesses in town that suffered tens of thousands of dollars in losses. We did nothing for them. So that storm, if you forget about the hospital, it was probably $10 or $15 million worth of damage to property. For every person we helped, there were probably 5 or 10 more that we said, sorry, we just can't do it, or there's damage that didn't get covered, or there's more damage that you could do. Not counting a lot of hospital employees who suffered damage, and some of them never really got reimbursed for losing vehicles and other personal effects. So I don't know if our solution is we should always just put money aside, and when there's a storm, we have some money to help some people. We should do that anyway, but not as a solution to actually fixing our drainage issue, which has been a problem for probably 50 or 60 years.
That's it, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Sad. Any other comments before we move on? Mr. Plasko?
Yeah, I was gonna suggest that we probably had plenty of discussion, we should move on to a vote. I would think that the votes we took earlier, we kind of knew, could feel, we had a consensus, and just made one motion. I wonder if we could do just the 2 separate motions.
That's a good suggestion, and with the board's indulgence, I'll do that. So the motions would be to place the article on the warrant, and then a second motion
Whether or not to support it.
whether or not to support it. So, Mr. Lane.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to place Article 9 on the special town meeting warrant.
A motion has been made, and it's been seconded by Mr. Plasko.
Yes.
On the motion to put Article 9 on the warrant, Ms. Grow?
Yes.
Mr. Lane?
Yes.
Mr. Sad?
No.
Mr. Plasko?
Yes.
The chair votes
did?
yes. The vote is
Mr.
4
Whoever he
to
is,
1.
the guy with the wrist.
A second motion, I'll
Yeah,
entertain.
I'll make a motion to support Article 9 as written.
On Mr. Lane's motion, do I have a second? Ms. Grow is seconded. I'll go to a roll call vote. Motion to support Article 9. Ms. Grow?
Yes.
Mr. Lane?
Yes.
Mr. Sad?
No.
Mr. Plasko?
No.
That motion passes 3 to 2. Thank you, everyone, for the rigorous discussion. We move on. Article 10.
Thank you, guys.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
For the record, we talked about this meeting or two ago. I recused myself, and I will do so again tonight.
Yes. Very well. Thank you, Mr. Plasko, for noting that. Article 10 is retiree COLA increase. Mr. O'Neill or Mr. Mizuko, would you like to just recap this particular article for us?
Sure, I'll just give a brief overview. The retirement board is required to come to town meeting to receive a cost of living adjustment, or the amount of the cost of living adjustment that can be applied to their pension. Cost of living adjustments for pensions are generally actually very small for the state municipal system, so there's no reason not to move forward with this, other than we may want at some point the board to send a letter to the retirement board asking in the future if they could just have their actuaries prepare a cost estimate for any items that will go to town meeting. This one is relatively minimal. Some of that documentation might have been included a year or two ago. Something slipped through that actually likely had significant impact on the overall pension liability without a full analysis. Not needed for this. I would recommend we put it forward, but just maybe a letter from the board to the retirement board asking that come in the future.
On this article, are there any questions? Just to be clear on the retiree COLA increase, so just when a retirement board under PERAC authorizes a COLA, that COLA increases only covers the first X amount of salary. It's not one that covers
It's
the.
like $17,000.
Yeah,
It's not a lot.
thank you for reminding me. All right.
Motion to approve.
A motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
A roll call vote, motioned and seconded. Ms. Grow on Article 10.
Yes.
Mr. Lane?
Yes.
Mr. Sad?
Yes.
Chair votes yes, with one abstention. Welcome back, Mr. Plasko.
Thank you.
We move on now to Article 11, payment of unpaid CARES Act funds. Who wants to take this one?
I'll take care of it, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
This is for reimbursements from a grant that was received but unexpended in fiscal 2021. We received a little bit of CARES Act money right at the start of the pandemic. Right, honestly, we got notice we were receiving it. I think it came in right before the world shut down. So this money was sort of put in its own pot, and then we received a large amount of CARES Act funding, which we received, which was about $2.6 million. That was later followed up with several $1 million of ESSER money, ESSER 1, 2, 3, and then ARPA money. So we received millions of dollars during the pandemic. This was sort of a pre-world shutting down amount of money that came in, was never expended, close to free cash. The Treasury Department would like their money back, so we are keeping it so.
In the amount of $37,221.22. And you may have mentioned this, how much overall federal money did we get specific to this particular, was millions of dollars or?
Millions and millions. CARES Act was $2.6 million, I think. And then school departments received ESSER funds. I think that was $3 or $4 million. I could be wrong. And then our ARPA funding was maybe $8 million. So even in comparison to just CARES Act funding, which we've received nothing else, it's a relatively small amount.
Questions, comments from the board? Mr. Plasko?
Thank you. Here I go again. I support this. I think it's something obviously we have to get done and do. But I didn't go back and do the research, so don't ask me to name them. But in the last couple of years, we've had 3, 4, 5 times we've either internally or through town meeting had to go back and change funds because they were inadvertently put into the wrong accounts. This has to stop. I don't know if it's your office, I don't know if it's the accounting office, treasurer's office, but it's got to stop. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Plasko.
If I could just respond to
Yes,
that.
Mr.
It's not that
Mizuko.
we're put in the wrong place. It's, funds close to free cash if they're unused. And the DOR requires us to close a lot of funds to free cash. We don't like to keep open funds or open grants if we're unsure. Sometimes the department doesn't know that they've had money coming in and we're unsure where it is, it closes to free cash. That's what we're supposed to do.
Well, this says these funds were inadvertently put there. So either change the yellow sheet or come up with a better explanation.
Well, I would say they were inadvertently closed because we then received $2.6 million in CARES Act funding, which had different spending mechanisms and requirements.
Got it?
Got it.
Any other comments, questions from the board? If seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I think Amanda's gonna make it.
Amanda, Ms. Grove, would you make a motion?
Yes. I will, so moved. Move to, put the article on the warrant and support the article.
And do I have a second?
Second.
We'll go with Mr. Lane for second.
That's fine. Just keep it moving.
Roll call vote. Article 11, Ms. Grove.
Yes.
Mr. Lane.
Yes.
Mr. Sad.
Yes.
Mr. Plasko.
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Article 12, unpaid bills, totaling $2,529.74. This is the typical unpaid bill article that we have at the May meeting, if I recall, Mr. Mizuko, Mr. Rosen, Mr. O'Neill.
That is correct.
Okay. Any questions on this article?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve. Would you like to also motion to support as well?
Yeah.
Motion to support and place on the warrant from Mr. Sad. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Lane seconds. Roll call vote again. Ms. Grove.
Yes.
Mr. Lane.
Yes.
Mr. Sad.
Yes.
Mr. Plasko.
Yes.
Chair votes yes as well. That completes our work on the special town meeting warrant. We move on now to the annual town meeting yellow sheet. We voted on the warrant last meeting, I believe, for the annual town meeting. Yes, Mr.
Yes.
The CPA article.
It's already signed and going.
Yeah, I'm
Yes.
sorry?
So the warrant is out signed, but
Yeah.
the CPA articles we need positions on.
Okay, very well. So basically, looking at the yellow sheet, I'm sorry, looking at the
Article 8.
Article 8. So we're looking and, did we take a vote on the CPC articles to go on the warrant last time?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
So we're looking for position only here. And this has to do with Article 8, Community Preservation Fund projects. What's the board desire here? Do we want to take the projects one by one, or is there a desire to take them as a whole?
Take them as a whole. Oh, Bill?
Well, I want to go on a record.
You wanna go one
I want to
by
go on
one?
record against two.
Okay, so we'll do them one by one. Article 8, the first project, Restore and Preserve Annual Town Reports.
So moved.
Mr. Plasko has moved to support, seconded by Mr. Lane. I'll take a roll call vote on the motion. Ms. Grove?
Yes.
Mr. Lane?
Yes.
Mr. Sad?
Yes.
Mr. Plasko?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Second project is Restore Memorial Library stained glass windows. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Motion please.
Oh, go ahead, Ms. Grove.
I'm going to make a motion that the board support.
And seconded by Mr. Lane? Yeah. And on,
3-pointer in the corner.
Why don't you take a motion to do all
Yeah.
of them, if that's the intent of the body, and I can just vote against the two I'm going to vote against.
That sounds fine.
Take up some time.
Okay,
For this routine.
so we'll just
action.
go to move to vote on all of them, one by one at this point. Is that your suggestion?
So on that motion, I would like to be recorded as opposed to shared funding services, $14,000. As I pointed out when they were before us, there's money to cover some of this cost, at least half of it, and I think we should be doing that. I asked if there was an explanation, and there wasn't that evening, and haven't heard anything since, so at this time I would still be opposed to that. And on the creation of affordable housing veterans, I'm opposed to that. Again, I feel that we needed a stronger indication of how the town's resources, $1 million, would be protected, and haven't, the intent was good that we're gonna get some protection, but there was none actually stated or brought back to us, so as of this time, I would have to oppose that motion as well. So I guess you could put them all as 5-0, and those two as 4-1, or however anybody else feels.
Yeah, well, why don't I open up the discussion to other members in terms of their, let's specifically talk about, are there any motions, are there any projects a member feels similarly that they would vote no for?
I'm with Bill on the 1 million, until we have some wording from legal counsel and what they're doing with it and how we're gonna be protected, that's a big nut. And, we haven't seen any paperwork of what they're gonna do to, like a 5-year look back or something for this. They change and go to chapter 11 after Stewart, we're at $1 million.
Okay, Mr. Sad would register as a no on the affordable veterans health, I'm sorry, article.
Veterans.
The veterans, okay. Any other observations on a no vote for any of these projects from any members?
I had a question about that same one, which was, did we for sure not hear any conclusions of the language around the guarantees? Like, we know for sure that they haven't finished that language at this time?
You're referring to Ms. Phelps' presentation from last meeting regarding work to be done on that, the language.
In terms of like clawbacks and
Yeah,
such.
yeah, I don't know the answer to that. Mr. Mizuko, Mr. O'Neill, Mr. Rosen know anything about their progress towards that?
I think CPC is still working through, maybe Mr. Lane can speak about the grant agreement. I think there was something on the CPC agenda in the last week or this week, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I can, if you just give me a second, I'll pull it up.
And follow-up to that question would be, if we don't support this, let's say that, we don't support it, how badly does it set back any sort of time-sensitive timetables for things that they're working on in relation to it? Do you have any idea of that?
Mr. Plasko?
It's going to be up to town meeting because it's already on the warrant. It's just what our position is. And the CPC will be speaking for it. I don't know what the Finance Commission will speak for or against it. Then the board's position and the town meeting will decide. It will be there. We're not keeping it from going, and we've already signed that warrant.
Is there a fiscal impact to the town from it?
So-
Might be something from the managers.
$1 million.
They were gonna answer.
Sure, two possible
taken.
areas where it could have an impact, so beyond the money that we're spending. The commercial property will go into, it'll be nonprofit, so it'll stop paying taxes on that property. I think based on its last assessment, it was maybe around $18,000 a year. I think the challenge might, and they may be willing to negotiate a pilot, I haven't spoken to them, I don't know if they do that, but it's not that itself wouldn't be too significant. And of course, even if they're exempt from property taxes, they still pay electric, sewer, water, and all that. The bigger challenge would be, I believe the veterans agents analysis, I'd have to check with Teddy, is that this might apply to 1 or 2 people in town. It's most likely going to be people that might need the housing that don't currently live in Norwood. If they are at that income level, they'd be eligible to get added to the veterans officers' rolls. Now, we get a 75% reimbursement from the state on that, but if it's 15 to 20 people, depending on what the definition of ELI really is, if they're at the The maximum that I think you can get out of the veterans program is maybe $20,000 or $24,000 a year, and that's if you're at the absolute lowest end of income. It is means tested. If you added 15 or 18 people to the veterans agent roles, you could be looking at $30,000 or $40,000 there. Cost maybe more. It's hard to tell because that's just simply based on residency in a community. So maybe it's a $50,000 hit.
Mr. Lane?
Yeah, sorry, thanks, Mr. Chairman. The draft agreement is on the agenda for tomorrow night's CPC meeting, but I can't seem to find it. So regardless, I mean, maybe we should put it on our agenda for our May 7th meeting.
It's a good suggestion.
To discuss here. Doesn't change, what Mr. Plasko said or Mr. said. I understand their position.
Yes, so is the suggestion that we hold the support vote until May 7th, or?
No, because we gotta get the sheet.
We gotta get
out,
it
right?
going, yeah.
Yeah.
We don't
No,
know
I think
for
we-
another 2 weeks, and they're gonna try to
Yeah,
get this
just-
out.
Yeah.
I think we should take
Thank
our
you.
position.
Yeah.
Take the
We-
position
we
as
have-
is.
We have usually post a meeting for the night before.
That's true.
So if we got new information that changed our mind, we could explain that to the body.
That's fair.
Yeah, sounds good. Mr. Lane, I'm so sorry, in recognition of our representative on the CPC, is there anything that you want to add to the projects in relation to our supporting votes?
I like all the projects. So I think it's a good use of the funding. I understand some of the reservation with the Vernon Street project in that, it's an outside developer and it's been stated that Norwood itself doesn't have a homeless veterans issue, but, and I think, part of the greater good, and I think Mr. Mulvihill would probably agree that, in spirit, it's a good thing to do, but I also understand Mr. Plasko and Mr. Sad's position that having assurances that $1 million, is going to, what we're intending, and if the project doesn't happen, what happens then, so completely understandable.
Thank you, Mr. Lane. Ms. Groh, any further comment?
I think I'm inclined to agree with Mr. Plasko and Mr. Sad. I really want to see that language now. If we have the opportunity to update our position at the town meeting, if the language gets done before then I definitely would be in favor of supporting it. But with a quantity of that amount of money, I would prefer to actually know what the assurances ended up being before I could just support it outright.
If I'm hearing the sense of the board, that there would be 3 members at this point that would be inclined not to support this project. That would be the outcome am I misunderstanding that?
That's what I'm hearing. Try to make a motion that we support all the items except for the shared housing and the veterans housing, and they be recorded as shared housing 4-1 and affordable veterans housing 2-3.
Yes, I agree with that, and I think in recording the yellow sheets as the 2-3 vote that Mr. Plasko has mentioned, probably some language in there, Mr. Rosen and Mr. Mizuko, regarding opportunity to receive, to Ms. Groh's point, any updated information that might advise us to perhaps take another look at this the night of town meeting when we have a pre-meeting.
Yeah, I think we can do that, and I think personally, if you want to soften the blow, if you will, you could put in the yellow sheet that as of this date, the board still had questions and will reconsider prior to town meeting.
I like that.
I think that sounds
We can
fine.
do that.
So I think our positions have been taken, and with that, I'll close out that agenda item. And that moves us into memoranda. Mr. Sad.
A couple things, Mr. Chairman. This weekend, you're all invited to the South Norwood Fishing Derby. The weather's going to be great.
Mr. Sad, this is memoranda first, then we'll get to
Oh,
addenda.
this memorandum.
Strike that.
Put it away.
I see where you're going, though.
But I think
Pointer in the corner,
Mr.
Mr.
Sad was
Lane.
making a motion to file.
No, I'm good.
A motion to file made by Mr. Plasko. Do I have a second?
No, yep.
On the motion to, I'm sorry, Mr. Sad, you seconded
Yeah.
it. On a motion to file memoranda, Ms. Groh,
Yes.
Mr. Lane,
Yes.
Mr. Sad,
Yes.
Mr. Plasko,
Yes.
Chair votes yes. I just want to make one note, something near and dear to Mr. Plasko and us is and myself are the reappointments to the Personnel Board. You and I were on the original study committee. The original, and I was the first chair of the Personnel Board. The gentleman that was also on that original study committee was Will Krasnow, who is up for reappointment. Mr. Krasnow has served on the Personnel Board from day one, many years ago, and was part of the study committee, and personally just like to thank him for his continued service to the Personnel Board and to the town for the value he adds to that particular board.
Good point.
Yeah. With that, we now can move on to manager's update.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll defer to Mr. Rosen, who is in the room, as I am currently traveling.
Assistant Town Manager's update.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Mizuko. Good evening, everybody. Just a couple of quick things in light of the fact that it's been a long meeting. As the chair knows, I am a member of the concert committee that we have in town, and obviously we're in full swing now with our summer mode, getting ready for all our concerts. The first thing I'd like to let the public know is that we do have a new concert series that is being grant funded this year from the Mass Cultural Council called Acoustic Thursdays on Central. I'm not sure if the camera can be able to pick this up, but we do have it on the website as well as our social media. But what this is a very low-key, scaled-down concert series that starts May 23rd. It's on Thursday evenings, so May 23rd, May 30th, and then the 4 June Thursdays from 6:30 to 8:30. And the musicians, the catch is here is that they're only playing acoustically, so it won't be a big gazebo concert. It's going to just be, they're going to be playing on Central Street towards the benches that are out there, and it's going to be really cool. We got some really good bands coming. Some of them have participated in our concerts in the past. Some of them are brand new to us. They've played other venues around town that have had good recommendations, but please check that out. It should be a really nice addition to our otherwise already awesome concert series. The other thing I wanted to mention is tickets are on sale for Chief Brooks's retirement party. You may have seen this flyer around town on social media, on the website. We are selling tickets both in person by cash and check or online through debit and credit card. You can find the flyer on our website or post it all around town if you'd like that. There you go, Mr. Sad. Yep. Feel free to use the QR code or go to the website.
That's too complicated.
A couple other things. We have, I think it was as referenced earlier, the next Selectmen's meeting is actually going to be switched to May 7th rather than May 14th. So that's in light of town meeting that's coming up. That's something that the chair and I had spoken about that he'd like us to announce. So rather than the second and fourth second and fourth Tuesdays in May, we're going to be doing the first and third Tuesdays in May. So that'll be May 7th and May 21st. Obviously, town meeting also falls the week of the 14th, the 13th. So that's why we're doing that. And then lastly, the fire chief asked me to just share with the public that burning season is almost over. So the 2024 open burning season only goes through May 1st. It goes January 15th through May 1st. You do have to apply for a burn permit, but just let the public know that it is ending very soon. So if you please, if you have any last minute stuff, go to the town website, go to the fire department's website and get your last minute burning permit. Otherwise, you have to wait till next January. So thank you.
You can find a day that's not greasy.
That's true. Thank you, Mr. Rosen. Mr. Sad.
I'm on. I want to thank everybody on the board, and Tony and Mark, Ryan, Kevin Shaughnessy, the DPW, the Light Department, the Rec Department. Sam and John did a great job. We put the fishing today down the South Node Fishing Derby. It's our 35th year. And there's some big ones. I didn't put them in, but there's some 3 and 4 pounders, some golden, some rainbows, some tigers, some brook trout. It should be a great day. Weather looks good. Come down and help if you want. And secondly, the Norwood Sportsman's is having, with Alan Howard as president, May 4th, 3 to 5 p.m. at the Norwood Sportsman's. May 4th, $2 for entry fee, and it's a great time for the kids and parents and friends of the fishing industry. So that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Sad. Mr. Plasko.
I think it's a good night to pass, so thank you.
Yes. All right, thank you. Mr. Lane.
Same.
In the corner.
Ms. Grow.
All right, I got two short things. One is I was able to reach out to Representative Rogers, in particular regarding the amendments for the state budget to help lobby for more local aid, for more transportation, education funds, and other amendments that are relevant to our interests that will help support all of the things that we're trying to do in town. And he was very amenable, so those good discussions went well. Just hopefully we'll see what we get this week as they actually get into debate. And then a small community thing for folks. Don't forget that the library is still doing their climate ribbon project outside the library. You can pick up a ribbon inside the library, the information desk. And the idea is that you write something that you care about on the ribbon, and then you display it out front with everybody's ribbons. And I'm just very pleased for the turnout for Earth Day this weekend. So just a reminder, that's one more activity that's available, and that lasts until April 30th.
Thank you, Ms. Crowe.
That's it.
Thank you. I'll go through mine relatively quickly, given the hour. To your last point, Earth Day wrap up. A big thank you again. Earth Day celebration on the Town Common was a very nice, successful event, well attended. Thank you to all the volunteers who staffed the tables, and to all the folks who got up Sunday morning to join the cleanup crews that were all over the schools and parks around Norwood, cleaning them on Sunday. It was just a great activity, as it is every year. First compost pickup for the pilot program is Tuesday, May 7th. We're closing in our enrollment at the $500 500 household level. So if you want to be part of that Tuesday, May 7th pickup, there's still a few slots left to enable yourself to be taking advantage of the compost pickup on May the 7th. Information is available on the town website, particularly the DPW page on the food compost program through Black Earth Compost. Master Plan Steering Committee, a subcommittee has been established for RFP, request for proposal review. We have proposals, and the committee is meeting and now deliberating on the proposals that have been received to date. I think the board got an invitation to attend, if they can, Norwood Cultural Council, May 1st at 7 p.m. at the Library Simone Room. There's a reception for the grant recipients, hosted by the Norwood Cultural Council. I was contacted, actually, Mr. Lane was contacted recently and by a reporter from WBUR FM. Who was doing a story regarding the Norwood Hospital and the impact to the community of its loss. I have an appointment tomorrow with the reporter to kind of give some information regarding what we perceive to be the loss to the community, with a particular focus, I think, on the letter that the board authorized us to send to Governor Healy several months ago. I think that's a good place to start with, just evaluating the impact or providing insights to that. I just wanted to give a shout out and a very big thank you to the General Manager's Office for Sharon Cartier. Sharon is retiring this month, unless Tony's talked her into staying on board for another 10 years. We're going to miss. Yes, we're going to miss Sharon, the very epitome of a professional administrative assistant, for lack of a better word. Just a wonderful person to work with. For those of us who have, and I know in the concert committee we depend on Sharon for a lot of the production of the work that's needed to put on those concerts, and everything is buttoned up, everything is done so well, and we wish Sharon a wonderful retirement. Thank you to whoever put out the information on the open meeting law, educational materials. I'm going to suggest to the board that given that this distribution actually is an annual requirement, that perhaps we would look to maybe dedicating an April meeting to distribution going forward, just like we did today, just so it's on our annual calendar to distribute and capture the information that is needed for our attention. With that, if there's no further discussion, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Mr. Plasko has made a motion to adjourn, seconded by Mr. Lane. A roll call vote will be counted. Ms. Grow on the motion?
Yes.
Mr. Lane?
Yes.
Mr. Sad? Mr. Plasko?
Yes.
Mr. Donnelly votes yes, too. Thank you very much for watching this evening. We are adjourned.